So hey anime fan. The series name is What If Naruto was a dragon slayer and fairy tale. This is second part of the series. So let's start the series. Sabuku no Raza, the Yandame Kazekage of the village hidden in sand, was in his office, thinking of ways that he could increase the quality of shinobi in his village, and was preparing a training regiment for them. He still remembered the challenge that Naruto issued to the Chunin, and how he made it a measuring scale to gauge the strength of his shinobi. He could still hear the screams of the genin that were hanging in the air. It was 2 in the afternoon, and if he was right, Naruto met with his children at 9 o'clock at the playground, and had started the prank near 10, and he has yet to hear any news of them being caught was yet to be heard by him. Meanwhile, he was also looking for various things to add in the alliance, and discuss them with the Hokage before they go back to Konoha. He was thinking of adding a student exchange program between the two villages to boost the alliance, and increase the quality of his ninja if they get the opportunity to be taught by the best from both Suna and Konoha. What are they doing today, he thought as he gazed outside to see the mayhem that has been caused, and what exactly was he gazing at? He saw several shinobi pants of his shinobi hanging, or more exactly sticking. At the academy, he sighed looking at the scene. Maybe giving them the authority to prank every single shinobi in vicinity was a bad idea, he thought while looking outside. He waited for few more hours as his secretary entered the office. Lord Kazekage, she said as he looked at her, a team of 18 genin and 8 chunin, and 5 ANBU are here with your children and the Uzumaki child. The Kage nodded as he motioned her to send them inside. He noticed several genin, chunin and ANBU flanked the room. He looked at their attire with an amused expression from behind the veil, while trying to stop himself from snickering. As he was looking at them, he noticed that not one of his jounin were here. He decided to forget about them for now, and looked towards the rest. Sweet genins were standing there with their faces red either from shame, anger or fatigue unknown. While they were panting very much. All of his genins were colorful. They had pink on their hair, red in the face, okay maybe it was color, some spots of yellow on the pants including splashes of blue and black and white here and there. The chunin, if he remembers correctly, it was a chunin that resulted in the challenge. Now where is that chunin, Raza thought while looking amongst the chunin with various expression. Some of horror to that of fear, as if they had a meeting with Shikaku himself. His gaze finally settled on the chunin who was currently hiding amongst the crowds, his face black and clothes with splashes of blue. It looked like sand was sticking on the body of several chunin. And the ANBU, well, they were mostly clear apart from the few sign of usage of sand on them, and looked better than the rest. Raza let out a sigh and looked towards the 4 restrained children. What happened? Was the first question he asked the ANBU and a chunin in the front before they started to several responses. They infiltrated the jounin lounge room and stole their clothings. What? Was the response as the Kage looked at them with varying expressions. The jounin lounge room was one of the most secure places in the village after the Kazekage Tower and ANBU headquarters. The jounin lounge room was simple 3-story building having and with several shower rooms and a bar and cafe and a spa in it too. Jounin lounge also had the reports of jounin including their personal and professional lives. If 4 children were able to infiltrate and damage the lounge while putting them at security risk, and also were able to steal things from the lounge. Granted, this was a prank and all, they stole their clothes, but still for the 4 of them to do this was ingenious. The security of the building was very high that even a Sannin would have a difficulty entering that place without being detected for a long time. One of the reasons that jounin kunoichis used the lounge for bathes to save themselves from becoming a character in the famous Aika Aika Paradise series of one of the Sannin, who was also a self-proclaimed super pervert. Even if all of them, even the women, have respect for the Sannin, even more than the legendary sucker. But there was other thing that was nagging at the back of his mind. The jounin lounge was exclusive only to jounin, and as such nobody were able to enter the building, as the buildings had most of the jounin in there, and such if they were harmed, why the heck he wasn't seeing any of the jounin in the mob. Where are the jounin? Raza asked, seeing if they were pranked then they should be calling for the blood of the 4 children, and he was seeing none, not even Baki and Pakura. The chunin looked uncomfortable and the ANBU remained silent, but the genins had different expression. Some were blushing, some were trying to rein in their laughter, but were still giggling and snickering, and the older genins were uncomfortable like the chunins. Well? The Kage, the jounin shinobi were missing their clothes. A raise of eyebrows from the Kage. All of them? All of them. The ANBU answered. He didn't know whether he said it with a straight face or not behind the mask, but the new genin were having a time of their lives as they laughed at the situation that their sensei had landed in. Even Baki? Even Baki, and he was thinking to make him the head of the training program for the shinobi. How? He was in the showers when they stole his clothes. Well, at least they didn't get a drop on him in other ways. He is now in towel, as his clothes are currently used as a flag. A raccoon mask ANBU pointed at the academy where pants were put on a pole and used as flag. At least they weren't got dropped on by the four of them, as at the time they were in a very pricky situation, as nobody in their right mind would run after children naked. How much time? Kazekage started looking at the gathered shinobi. How much time did it take for all of you to catch four of them? All of them hung their head as the ANBU and Chunin muttered something. Speak clearly, he commanded, and pointed at the Chunin. You first. The Chunin went stiff, as that was the same Chunin because of whom the challenge was issued. I'm waiting. Chunin. 3 hours. 3 hours? 3 hours. All of you took 3 hours, he asked while looking at the gathered ninjas. It took 45 minutes for us to catch them, and ANBU said, and if he was not missing it, then there was some pride behind that voice. The Kazekage rubbed his forehead while looking at them. So again, it took an extreme amount of time for you to catch 4 children who have just started their training. Raza looked at the children as Naruto, Temari and Kankuro filled themselves in pride, and Gaara looked at the ground shyly, but even he didn't miss the smile that was on his face. You know, this just strengthens my idea for the training program. Now everybody sunk their heads, and some shivered at the prospect of extra training that the Jounin might dish on them, as due to cut in budgets from the daimyo the Jounin tried to up the training of the genin, and the training was bit too much for the newly minted genin, and I might myself design and plan the training regiment for all of you. Before they were shivering now, all of their color went down the drain. What? Was the collective response. What are you gaping at? Raza spoke as every shinobi got their composure back. You do know that you have 4 more days to catch them, and I won't find it fit that my shinobi were unable to catch few children. You know I don't care that you were unable to catch these kids. What I want is that none of my shinobi pranked by them. I want you to catch them even before they should have been able to prank my shinobi. Understood? Everyone was now looking at him as if he actually lost his mind. Now what are you all gaping at? You are all ninjas. All of you have responsibilities and jobs, so go out there and do that. After that he turned to look at the children and sighed as all of them were talking amongst each other. Even though the Uzumaki child was a trouble, he was more than delighted to have that child with his children. All 3 of them started to come out of their shell with every single day. He called in his secretary. You called Lord Kazekage, she said while bowing her head. Arrange a meeting with the Hokage for tomorrow. Yes, Lord Kazekage, she said as she bowed her head again and went out. He sighed again, thinking of the things that he could discuss with the Hokage, but instead he was thinking of the trouble the 4 children in front of them could bring. Now where was the Ika book I kept in my office? I seriously needed a good read, Raza thought while putting his hand in the desk as Temari led the 4 of them out of his face, and a blush made its way on his face and a perverted giggle came out. Elemental Nation, Wind Nation, Sunagakure no Sato, October 19th. It was Friday afternoon. Hokage walked through the village of Sunagakure towards the Kazekage office from his hotel. There was a frown marred on his face as he walked towards his destination. The Kazekage called him in the office, so the first obvious thought was that if Naruto decided to pull something on the leader of the village, and shook his head, he wouldn't try something so idiotic, would he? If he did, then he would be in shitload of trouble from him. He will confiscate all his instant ramen, and will ban him from the Ikarakus for a month. And at the time when I was getting so close to the important part of my Ika, the Hokage thought with a blush Kamiko was about to bend in front of Hayato while wearing a bikini as he kept his stare on her chest. Before his train of thought could go further, a giggle came from beside him as he turned his head to the right, looking at Kakashi, who was reading his Ika while moving around with no care in the world. It's not fair, damn it, he was crying anime tears as he entered the office. The secretary of Kazekage guided them again to the office as the Kazekage called them in. Good afternoon, Lord Hokage, Kazekage greeted as he stood up from his seat to greet Hokage. Good afternoon to you as well, Lord Kazekage, Hokage replied. There was silence after that for few minutes, which was broken by Hiruzen as he asked the Kage of the Wind a question that was nagging at the back of his mind from the beginning. What did Naruto do? He blurted, ready to hear the damages done by him. The Kazekage had an amused smile on his face as he looked at the face of the professor. You don't worry, Lord Hokage, Raza started. He kept his word of pranking the shinobi only, and with minimum damage. Hokage then let out a breath that he was holding after hearing that. I actually called you here to talk about something else. Before they could proceed any further, H secretary knocked the door as both turned to look at her. Usually the secretary would be wearing a normal shinobi uniform, or a civilian dress that included jeans and a top. And in the morning she was wearing civilian dress, but right now she came in wearing cleaning clothes, an oxygen mask on her face, and a room freshener spray bottles in both of hands. She took off her mask and bowed her head in front of the Kages. Lord Kazekage, Lord Hokage, she started. The shinobi has caught the children, she said. The Hokage and Kazekage looked at each other, and then back at her. Tuka Kazekage started. You could send them in, but before that can you tell us why you are wearing these clothes and mask? Raza asked while pointing towards her clothes. Tuka stood there for a while before her body started shaking. It looked she wanted to break down, but knowing that her Kage was not as lenient as the Kage of Leaf, she reined herself in. You will understand once they come in here, Lord Kazekage, and before I forget, here she took out few more masks from somewhere and gave them to the people gathered in the room and went towards the door to call the ninjas in. Is this some sort of prank? The Kazekage muttered. The Hokage also looked somewhat perplexed when she gave him the mask. But before anybody could say anything else, a horrendous and terrible smell entered the nostril of the already gathered ninjas in the room as they hastily put on the mask. As they looked towards the door as first, the Anbu and Jounin carrying the children entered the room, all of them wearing the oxygen mask, and behind them were Chunin and few Jounin without the mask and wet patches on their pants. What happened? Both Kazekage and Hokage asked at the same time. The Anbu decided to retell the whole ordeal to the Kazekage. Lord Kazekage, Lord Hokage, as per the challenge issued by you and accepted by Naruto and the Shinobi Corps, Uzumaki Naruto and the Sabuka siblings decided to make the academy instructors as their new target. They first entered the academy and entered the staff washroom, Gaara, Kankuro and Naruto towards the men and Temari towards the women toilet. There they used pants and shoes to make it look like someone was already using the washroom. After coming out of there, as the teachers were in the class teaching the student, they added the laxatives in the staff cafeteria lunch. After that nothing was needed to explain, as the Kazekage and Hokage looked at the unlucky ones who didn't bring their own lunches. Raza would have compensated them and given them a lecture like yesterday, but the stinking smell was so much that he could smell from the mask. Okay, he said as he looked at the gathered shinobi, you are all now excused and please get freshened up so that you don't smell like a skunk's ass. As he said that, the Chunin behind the oxygen masked ninjas ran back home quickly. The four troublemates quickly went towards their Kage as all of them removed their mask. Even after they were gone, the smell still was there, and it was extremely difficult for them to breathe, as Naruto held his nose tightly to save himself from the smell. Lord Kazekage. Yes, Lord Hokage. Can we discuss these things at the hotel? Absolutely. All of them headed out of the room as the Kazekage turned to look at his secretary Tuka. Make sure to call the cleaners to clean the chambers thoroughly, and I don't want to smell anything like this again. As he headed out, he missed to see that his secretary was crying tears as they came out like waterfall from her eyes as she was left behind to have the place, which now smelled worse than a scarf made of fur of a skunk's butt. Oh mate, Yashimaru was having an amazing day. Gaara was happy with his siblings and a new friend, so he didn't have to babysit him as Pakura was watching over them, and he was finally going to ask that hot girl next door on a date, and was currently on his way to give a demonstration at the academy as he was called in by a friend for nothing could go wrong. He went to the academy, gave the demonstration, and then went with his friend towards the staff cafeteria to grab a bite. How the person in front of him started, today is a good day, isn't it, Yashimaru? Oh yes, Yashimaru replied while eating. It is. Now as they were eating, several instructors made a beeline towards the washroom as he watched something in his stomach stirred as he held it, and just like the rest of them, and saw a long line there. As the stirring became unbearable to control, he ran out of the academy, and ran straight towards the public washroom in the park, but in his haste he forgot to look at the sign, which clearly resembled a lady. As he entered the washroom, the first thing he noticed was the girl he was supposed to ask out after the academy, and then several other ladies. Trying to save himself from their wrath, he raised a hand and waved at them awkwardly. Hello. Apparently it was the wrong thing to say, as a long shriek of pervert and beat down the girls kept stomping at him, but before they could do anything further, a loud fart came out of his ass as the words of pervert changed into EWWW, and their expressions to that of disgust. His good day turned into the worst day as he looked at the girl walking away from him, while looking at him in disgust as tears came out of his eyes. But then the tears, they will pay, he thought, as while crying anime tears they will definitely pay. Watch out, Uzumaki, cause Yashimaru is coming for revenge. A large fart sounded from his ass again after he goes to washroom. He then held his pants and went out to go towards the male washroom, but much to his dismay it was again full by the instructors of the academy. He fell on his knees, eyes glazed over as another fart was about to come out, and he shit in his own pants, and let out a huge cry. No, the Hokage was in his room with his Anbu and Kakashi. Genma again had the job of watching over Naruto, with Yashimaru and Pakura watching over the Kazekage siblings. All four of them were preparing for their new prank. Hiruzen was currently looking at the paper which had the proposition of the sum of the programs regarding the shinobi programs, which also had the exchange program. His current thoughts, instead of being on Naruto, were on the piece of paper in his hand. He knew that the piece of paper in his hand will increase the quality of shinobi in both countries. The idea of the exchange program could boost the relationship between the village, and the hostility that remains will be diminished. Yes, if there were some good things, then there were also the bad things and the problems. First and foremost, the council of both the villages will raise a huge stink over it. More in Konoha than in Suna, as most of the decisions in Suna are taken by the Kazekage, but in Konoha the civilian council, his advisor and Danzo, mainly Danzo, would raise their voice against the notion. Civilian council he could take care of, but the three old fossil will be a huge pain in the ass. There were few ways, but they were not the option he wanted to have. He will talk to the Kazekage about it tomorrow, and if possible will think how to break it to the council without much of a trouble. Unknown to him, at the Kazekage in his office was thinking the same thing. He knew that most of the members would favor this as it helps them to increase their quality of ninjas, but as always there will be few oddballs present in the council who will give him a huge headache. He then looked outside his office at the sky. He let out a smile, remembering the faces of his children, as in past 3 days they had shown more emotions and also talked with him. Even Gaara talked with him, and after a long time he finally had his family back. And it was all possible because of Naruto Uzumaki. He also knew that the four of them had made a new friend by the name of Katsuri no Tatsuri no. It was maybe Matsuri. Yeah, he was sure the girl name was Matsuri and was trying to enter the academy. Today was an exam for the entrance in the academy for the non-shinobi students. As the girl was not from the shinobi family, she would have to give these tests that mainly included physical tests and some basic history test of the village, and for her to enter the academy she had to clear this test. And currently he remembered the four of them asking her yesterday if she wanted to join them, but she had to prepare for the exam yesterday, and today she had to give that exam. He was actually happy that his children and Naruto made new friends, but when they asked her if she wanted to join the pranking spree, he had a near heart attack. It was nigh impossible to catch the four of them or to stop the pranks. He didn't want another child to join this, or the trouble that it could cause. Well, more trouble than usual. As he was musing, a knock on his door knocked him out of his musing. His secretary again entered the office with a frown on her face. She was known to have a smile on her face 24/7, so the frown on her face was quite a change and something to worry about. He motioned her to tell about what she entered for. Lord Kazekage, Lord Tajiro has come seeking your audience. Now there was reason to be worried about Tajiro, one of the member of the council. Also there were some rumors flying around that he was planning rebellion against the Kazekage, but as of right now there were no evidence to prove this, so he could not take any action against him solely on rumors. He nodded and told her to send him in. The next person to enter the office was a person wearing regal clothes and sandals. He had a frown on his face and was looking at the Kazekage. Greetings, Lord Kazekage, he greeted, all the while the frown from his face never did drop. Greetings to you too, Lord Tajiro, Kazekage replied. Care to explain as to why you have graced me with your presence today? He may not tell everyone, but he was having a great day today, and he smiled a lot lately, which is quite questionable considering most of the time his face was hid behind a veil, and now just looking at the face of this person he knew that there will be some problem today. No, not a problem, he had it every single day in form of the thrice damned paperwork. His day just turned horrible, not that he will say it to his face, but he can think it. Lord Kazekage, Tajiro started, I have been hearing things about some things. Raza turned his attention to him, that you have allowed your children, including a child from have been allowed to play pranks on the ninjas of our village. I would like to ask why you have given this kind of permission. The frown on his face grew marginally as a frown made its way on the face of Kazekage. Tajiro, Kazekage starts, you ask me why I allow this. Well, it was to see the military might of the village, and if they were able to catch few children or not, and as you can see that they failed miserably. Not only that, it had allowed me to make plans regarding the training of the shinobi, and the internal security of the village. But Tajiro interjected, did you not consider the fact that the child who have been playing pranks could be a weapon against Suna to compromise its security? Or have your personnel situation is stopping you? From making these solution he stopped for a moment. Don't tell me the Kazekage has fallen so much for his family crisis that he is not able to make proper decisions regarding village safety. As he completed this sentence, a huge burst of ki solely aimed at him from the Kazekage made it extremely difficult for him to breathe. Tajiro Kazekage drawled out with venom in his voice, "Do not forget that I am the Kazekage, and as the Kage of my village I took the oath to keep my village safe, and as such I have done things to the best of my ability to keep my oath. So it will be very kind of you not to raise your voice against my decisions and my commands and my authority, for I have done everything within my power to keep this village safe. I have even sacrificed my family for the betterment of my village." The Kazekage let the ki drop so the man in front of him could breathe again. I looked into the eyes of that child. Raza started again. Those eyes shows pure innocence that a child should, not that of a trained person. Tajiro: "So yes, I know what I am doing." He paused, then looked at Tajiro again. "Is that all, or you have something else that you need to ask?" Tajiro gasped and took a deep breath. "I apologize for my rudeness for my last comment, Lord Kazekage." He spoke. "I also heard some rumors about the said child from Konoha to having a bloodline. Is it true?" Tajiro asked, and Kazekage sighed, knowing that he has to answer the man in front of him. "Yes, it is." Kazekage spoke and saw that Tajiro was thinking something. "Will there be another meeting with the Hokage before he leaves for Konoha?" "I don't know, but there is a high possibility that he may ask audience with us with another prospect that I have asked to add in the treaty." Tajiro was deep in thought as he regarded few of the things that has been told, and what he heard from the rest was true. He then stood from his seat. "Thank you for your time, Lord Kazekage, and please inform us if the Hokage asks for another meeting with the council. I will take my leave now." As he said this he went out of the office. As Kazekage frowned, he didn't know what was Tajiro planning, but he needed to be prepared for few of the things that the next meeting with the Hokage may develops. Meanwhile, at other part of the village, Naruto, Gaara, Temari and Kankuro were huddled together making plans for their next grand prank, but currently they were having difficulty in choosing the next victim of their pranks. A little bit away from the Gunma, Yashimaru and Pakura were trying to keep them under their gazes. "So who are we going to prank next?" Temari asked enthusiastically. It was quite ironic, as it was her in the beginning who was against the idea of playing pranks on people, but right now she was having way too much fun to protest against anything. "I don't know," Naruto replies honestly. "I think we targeted every single shinobi in the area." Kankuro and Gaara nodded. "The only one left are the village elders, the ANBU headquarters and the Kages." Gaara said. "Pranking the Kage would be impossible. The villager elder we could prank, as we don't know where the ANBU headquarters is," Kankuro says. "I know where the ANBU headquarters is," Gaara says shyly as Rest looked at him with raised eyebrows. "Yashimaru took me there once." "Well, even if we know where the headquarters is, it would be extremely difficult to infiltrate that place and prank them without getting caught. To prank them we need full layout of the place and a well-thought plan to prank that place. So again we have the village elders and clans to prank," Temari says as Gaara, Naruto and Kankuro deflated for not being able to prank the ANBU headquarters. They wanted to see if they were able to pull it off or not, but knew that she was right. "Alright, so who to prank? Village elders or various clans?" Naruto asks as he looks at others. "Clans," the Kazekage siblings stated simultaneously. "Alright, so the various clans," Naruto says with conviction. "Now how to prank them?" All four of them started making different plans to play on various clans in Suna. "Look at the four of them," Pakura says from his place, making plans as if they are going on a real mission. Yashimaru nods his head and turns to look at Gunma. Considering the amount of stealth and creativity in these pranks, no doubt it looks like as they are going on a real mission, Gunma states while looking at them. "What do you mean, Gunma?" Yashimaru asks as Pakura also looks towards them to listen to his explanation. "Look at it in this way," Gunma starts. "Both of you will agree that every single of their pranks were extremely creative and humiliating, right? But somewhat childish from the viewpoints of the adults both." Yashimaru and Pakura nodded. "Now from the shinobi point of view, these pranks were a well thought out plan. In other words, if a shinobi looks at their first prank on the Jounin lounge room, they easily sabotage that place, and if we're enemies instead of clothes, several information on the Jounin of the village would have been compromised." Both Pakura and Yashimaru widened their eyes in realization as the weight of the words dawned on them. Now their pranks on Academy, well, consider if they were enemies instead of laxatives, there were high chances that there would be poison in the food. What would happen then? Both Pakura and Yashimara looked at Genma as they finally understood what he trying to tell them and why the Kazekage was so adamant to train the Suna shinobi when they were pranked. I think that this is one of the main reason why Lord Kazekage even allowed to let him prank the shinobi. By doing this he is trying to strengthen the village security, as well as train his shinobi, Yashimara states as he looked at the 4 children in front of them. Genma nodded from beside him as Pakura looks at them with wonder. After a few more minutes Genma started to fidget on his spot. Hey guy, I'm going to bathroom, can you keep close on all of them? Pakura nodded absent-mindedly, as Yashimara simply told him to relieve himself. Hey Yashimara, Pakura starts as the Chunin turns to look at her. Don't you think that Naruto looks extremely familiar from somewhere? Yashimara turns to look at the 4, more specifically at Naruto. Now that you mention it, he does looks kind of familiar, but where I have seen that face. Not only that, but Lord Kazekage and the honorable siblings looked as if they had seen a ghost. Pakura states, and in the hotel when they were talking I noticed that they were talking as if his parents were very famous or something, and also as if he was hated in his village. Not only that, but the name Uzumaki sounded extremely familiar. Wanna find out about him? Pakura asks. Sure, Yashimara says. I will also Baki if he want to join us in this adventure, she says. Both then turned to look at Genma as he was making his way. Hey guys, anything that where are the children? Huh, what are you talking about? Genma, they are right. Pakura turns to look at them, but to her surprise all 4 of them were missing. Huh, where did they go? They were here just right now. I don't think now's the time to think about it. Yashimara says what we need right now is to find them before they cause havoc. Fire Nation. Kanahigaku no Sato, October 20th. In Konoha the village was enjoying its peace as the village pariah was not in the village. There were several rumors regarding him, but nothing mattered to one person. This person was sitting in an underground headquarters, with bandages covering most of his body and a part of his face. This was Danzo, leader of the Root Anbu and one of the esteemed member of the council. He was rival of the 3rd Hokage in everything, including for the position of Hokage. He was currently sitting on his chair, his hand at the armrest gripping it tightly and a look of rage on his face. He was livid as most of the decision and power of the council was given to the shinobi council and clan heads, and he didn't like it not one bit. Not only that, but he had been unable to follow him with his Root Anbu as that freaking Jinchuriki somehow was able to locate them. He only found that the Yondaime Hokage and his wife left a scroll for their son. Yes, he knew who exactly Naruto Uzumaki was and who were his parents, but because of that old monkey he was unable to have his weapon. He will have his weapon under his control. Oh yeah, he will. But for that to happen he need to make a plan that won't backfire in any possible way. He is needed to make planning for that. Kazekage looked troubled just few minutes ago to Juro, a member of Suna Council who came in a few minutes ago, his eyes still staring at the door through which Tejuro went, his mind currently thinking of the possible outcomes that could come from him knowing about this dragonic bloodline. There were several things that could occur now from this point onwards, but he now have to arrange one last meeting with the Hokage. But there is one thing that he knew for sure, that this meeting is going to be more troublesome than all the meeting. No, not all the meetings. It is going to be more troublesome than all the meetings, including the mindless ramblings of the council with the troublesome paperwork as a cherry on the top. How much he loathes the paperwork. He looks towards the window as a bird flies by. Thoughts regarding a certain blonde-haired, blue-eyed child playing with his children crossed through his mind. He was innocent and naive, and his happiness was contagious. His energy was just that infectious. He could feel that energy in his children. His ninjas, even if they were being pranked, and many of them would never admit it, but they were liking the new joy that the blonde-haired child brought into their life. He managed to be sociable with Gaara Jinchuriki of the one-tailed raccoon or Ichibi no Shikaku. Granted that many of the civilians were afraid for the blonde-haired child, as some of the civilians has put it, luring an innocent child into a trap so that he could kill him. Truthfully, the things they spoke were more graphic that a mere child should never know of, but it was spoken with something like ripping him apart and bashing his head. Other was tearing the skin of his bone when he is alive, rip his hair off, and then use his skull as a bucket, his blood as paint, and use his hair as paintbrush to write his name on the top of Kazekage office, proclaiming himself as the Demon King. But moving on. Yes, as the day grew closer, the shinobi were relieved that they wouldn't be victim of the prank anymore, but in the back of their mind a tiny bit they were actually sad that the blonde menace was going back, even if they would never admit it, that Naruto Uzumaki brought something new and exciting in their very consistent and normal life. In short, they would miss him, but right now, they would kill him, and his little band of friends, even if 3 of those friends were the spawn of their village leader, even if one of them is from another village, even if killing them would make it an international incident, even if killing them would make the shinobi traitors to their village, even if killing them would cause a massive raccoon demon to be free and raise their village. And just because of the last point, they would not be killing them, as none of them would want a massive raccoon on their asses. So they were going to catch them and bring them to Kazekage and get humiliated in front of their colleagues and subordinates. Again, what have they done now that so many shinobi were running after them? Well, to put it simply, they painted the village clan building, and the whole of the shinobi and kunoichi are after them. Reason: they didn't want to listen to the clan member whine like a 5-year-old child whose candy has just fallen on the ground, or a few weeks old child whose sucker was just taken, and many other examples could be used, but for the sake of their sanity and peace they will ignore it. But first they need to catch them, which was proving to be more troublesome than usual. And it was saying something, as catching the 4 of them was extremely troublesome, so you could only imagine how much troublesome it is, and none of them were looking to where they were headed to. Now they looked, and many of got nosebleed as a group of women. Few kunoichi among them were there who were barely clothed, no forget barely clothed. The only thing that was covering their modesty was nothing else but a small towel, and in some cases it was not covering them at all. And many of the males knew that they were in trouble. They looked around for any sign of the 4 demons, as most of the shinobi looked around to put a blame on, but around them were nothing more but an empty public bath, and in front of them now stood a horde almost naked women in their righteous feminine fury. Few in the back tried to walk back, but stopped dead in their track, as the kunoichi that were with them were now barricading the door, as their heads were covered by the bangs of the hair. Yep, they were trapped in the midst of angry, blood-lusting women, who were releasing demonic aura and madness that would make the Kyubi and Ichibi proud. And they were fucking pissed. They were dead. So you men thinks that you can barge in here for a free peep show, huh? Womane kunoichi maybe spoke with venom dripping from her mouth as she spoke the word men. A brave soul, the same one who decided it was a great idea to speak in front of Kazekage that lead them in their current situation, stood his ground and spoke a bit hesitantly. That is, no, you got it wrong. We were following the 4 monsters that had pranked the clan heads and were commanded to catch them. So that now, before he could complete their sentence, the kunoichi behind them spoke with a snarl. You mean the same children who are currently outside this area? Now the shinobis were dumbstruck. They were sure that those 4 were in front of them instead of behind them, and if they were in front of them while they were running away, how the hell they managed to get away from here was a question none of them knew. Currently the 4 monster, as you said, are out there with some new genins, and are holding them while you pigs were ogling them, another said with a cold voice from behind them. So now they are blaming and using children for their perversion, huh? Another voice said, as the males were getting a very bad feeling in their gut. So what should we do with them? This was creeping them out, as a strong chill went up their spine as the women surrounded them with dark aura looming over them. Outside the women bathing area. Do you think we should run? Kankuro asked the other as he, Naruto, and Gaara watched the door through which the kunoichi, after catching them, went to grab all the shinobi. A bad feeling settling in their guts for some reason. Temari, standing beside Naruto, frowns at the scene and looks towards the 3 boys. Kankuro seems to understand what is or will be happening behind the door. But Naruto and Gaara looked oblivious to the whole ordeal. Behind them 3 genins, 1 female was standing with a frown on her face, and 2 male with a nervous expression, and looked back at their teammate. I don't think that will be a good idea. One of the genins spoke with a nervous expression while looking back at his teammate. Naruto and Gaara looks towards the boy with a confused expression. Why? Naruto and Gaara asks at the same time. Because the female genin starts, but before she could even add anything, a loud girlish shriek interrupted her. Because of that, responded the girl. Yep, not a good idea, the 3rd genin supplied. Oh my god, not the face, not the face. Definitely not a good idea, Kankuro said, shivering and paling considerably as the color from the faces of the male was drained. Temari and the female genin smirked in satisfaction as the shrieks and yelling got louder. Not the balls, please, not the balls, Now, hearing this made every single male within the hearing range hold their balls and cringe as the wail was heard over all the Suna. Half an hour later, Kazekage looks in front. Today the paperwork had been increased at least tenfold due to some circumstances that raised because of the trouble his children and shinobi has caused. The clan complaining about the children and the civilians, mostly the females, were complaining about the shinobi, mainly the males. The paperwork was divided into 3 different stacks. He then raised his head to look at the assembled people divided in two pats, Kunoichi on one side while glaring at the other side, with the 3 genins that were holding the 4 menace with them, and the 4 menace standing with them, and on the other side, all the shinobi were standing while being glared at by the Kunoichi, and their appearance. Well, to put it bluntly, they looked like the zombies from the Living Dead series. Some of them looked like they were actually zombies, and many of them had their hands and legs bent at a weird angle. One even had his feet backwards. Kazekage started to rub his nose and let out a sigh. You know, when I issued this challenge, I was not hopping for it to be challenged to who will give me more headache and paperwork, but to actually see the level of my shinobi. But this Kazekage turned his gaze towards the stack of paperwork, and then towards the present people. I was not hoping for this. He then picked a paper from one of the stack. This one is from one of the clans. The 4 of you decided to paint one of the clan pink, while one was colored purple, one orange, and one blood red. He put the paper back in the stack, and because of this the clan heads have put forth some serious accusation against 4 of you. All 4 of them were now looking at the 4 of him with sheepish expression. And some serious accusation, yeah, right. All the clan heads and shinobi families were out for blood, but he didn't want to talk about this with them. He then took another paper from another stack and towards the Kunoichis and about you. Well, it's nothing more except for the property damage, which is coming out of your paycheck, he commanded with finality in his tone. And then he turns towards the last stack and took a paper and turned towards the zombies. And you all, he then sighed and looked at them. All of you are fools. In your rage-induced moment you didn't notice your surroundings and entered in a place, and not only you humiliated yourself but also rest of the shinobi corps. He then let out a sigh. You know, only 2 more days are left for you to prove me wrong, but considering the condition of all of you, he looks toward his half-dead shinobi, I will have to develop some serious program. All of you are now dismissed, he commanded, knowing that the events of the day are catching up to him. And now he had to prepare a final meeting with Hokage and Tejuro. Yeah, it is going to be a pain in the ass. Sabaku no Raza, the Yandame Kazekage, was sitting in his office with a frown on his face. One of his council's member, Tejuro, asked to meet with the 3rd Hokage. He was not a fool. He knew that there was something going on in the mind of that man, but he couldn't do anything as he had to inform the council of any meeting that he might have in the future. And also the fact that he was going to meet with the Hokage on the final matter regarding the program that he suggested to increase the quality of the in both the villages, and also regarding Gaara's seal. Speaking of Gaara, the Kazekage turned his head to look at his youngest son as he peacefully gazed over the village at the dead of the night. This was the first time when Gaara stayed here with his siblings, as he usually stayed with his uncle as he never slept. There were times when Temari and Kankuro stayed with Yashimara but kept distance from Gaara. Both of them were terrified of him, and unknown to them Gaara was hurting because of it. Also both were hurting themselves by straining the little relationship that the 3 of them had. Raza was the father of the 3 children, but he was never able to cultivate this relationship with his job as the Kazekage. Gaara's problem and the nagging of some of the council as he kept them at bay regarding Gaara. But ever since the arrival of the Konoha Nin with the Hokage and the Uzumaki child, not only every day was quite eventful, but his family was coming back together. For this he had to thank Naruto Uzumaki and the 3rd Hokage. When Naruto decided to befriend his children, including Gaara, the fear that was instilled in the villages regarding was slowly deteriorating. Both Gaara and Kankuro, including Naruto, were able to make few new friends in the village. Temari also made few friends in the few girls. But there was still hostility in the village, and he hoped that slowly it will vanish completely. He slowly walked towards his youngest son. As he approached, Gaara turned to look at him, and a genuine smile appeared on his face. It was one of the reasons he knows that he was hoping for the Hokage to agree to the program. Because he knows that if the Hokage agreed, then Gaara may not have to wait for another diplomatic mission or for Chunin exam to meet his first friend. Hello Gaara, Raza want to tell me about what you did today. As he said this, Gaara excitedly began what he did today. At the hotel, the Hokage looked down at the scroll that had come from the Kazekage for a meeting on the final day of their vacation in Suna. And I was hoping to enjoy my final day here in peace. But looks like I can't even have that here. He thought with a sigh, I just hope it isn't regarding you, Naruto. As even if your pranks were harmless fun in another village, the people there could take it as an insult. He then turned his head to look outside the window as cool breeze blew in. I don't want you to lose the first finds that you made because of these pranks. At the Kazekage office archives, as promised in the morning, the 3 Sunigekure shinobi and friends met outside the room of archives. Baki, Pakura and Yashimaru went to the archive room. has decided they were here to find out about the lineage of one Uzumaki Naruto. So we are here. What should we do? Pakura asked. We are going to look for any Uzumaki that was affiliated to the Hidden Leaf Village, Baki replied. Alright, so we are going to look in the old bingo books, right? Yashimaru supplied. Yes, we are. They went inside the room and looked at room with various files and bingo books. There was huge pile of several files in the corner. They looked around the room and sighed. It's going to be a long night, isn't it? Yes, Yashimaru. It is going to be a long, long night. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started, Baki said. 1 hour later. Did you find anything? No. Nope. Let's continue our search. Another hour later. Snicker. Anything interesting, Yashimaru? Yeah, Baki. Yashimaru raised a bingo book, not too old and not new either, as both Baki and Pakura raised their brows in question. Well, what's in it? Apparently, Baki in this specific bingo book, which is at least 5 years old, contained information on Pakura. What's the big? Including her sizes. A book flew right at Yashimaru and stuck him in the face, thrown by an angry Pakura who was also an embarrassed Pakura. Pervert. Let's continue our search. Another few hours later more. Pakura, Baki and Yashimaru were dead tired and they have yet to find anything information regarding the young Uzumaki. As they were continuing their search, Yashimaru stopped at a page. Hey guys, look what I found. I swear if it's anything perverted again I will use a blunt kunai to castrate you while keeping you conscious. Baki winced and held his hands over his crotch while Yashimaru shivered and paled considerably as he quivered under her glare. He stuttered while speaking. No. I actually found something. Then what are you waiting for? Pakura spoke irritated tone. In this bingo book, there is one specific name. Yashimaru started by holding out of the page on which a picture of red-haired women was shown. Kushina Uzumaki, or the Red Death of Konoha / Red Hot-Blooded Habanero. Know her, Pakura said with stars in her eyes. She is one of the strongest kunoichi to come out of Konoha just after the slug Sannin, Tsunade Senju. She had distinct chakra and was seal specialist while also a master at Kenjutsu. It was rumored that she was in relationship with. As she kept on saying, both Yashimaru and Baki were surprised at her knowledge, but more so when she stopped in mid while speaking about her, and slowly her eyes were widening to extreme proportion. With whom? Pakura, Baki asked, but she jumped at Yashimaru, shocking him and snatching the book out of his hands. Hey, what's the big deal? But she kept on looking through the pages. She stopped at one of the pages and gasped in surprise. Baki, understanding what she might have found, looked at her in anticipation. So who was she in relationship with? Pakura, he asks, but Pakura, instead of speaking, turns the book around to show the page she was looking at. The page showed a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes. This man was the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha. Both Yashimaru and Baki looked at Pakura, then down at the and then back at Pakura. Slowly both understood what Pakura was saying as their eyes got wider and wider as it dawned on them. He is the son of Yondaime Hokage. Both Baki and Yashimaru spoke. But why hide his heritage? Pakura asks. Because his parents have way too many enemies, and we all know some people love to hold their grudges, Baki states, as so if people know that he was the son of the Yellow Flash they will try to harm him. Do we know what happened to her? Yashimaru spoke. Cause we all know how the Yellow Flash died. Yeah, it was said that she also died in the Kyuubi attack with the 4th Hokage at the place where Kyuubi was killed, Pakura supplied. Wait, did you just say that he killed the Kyuubi? A Biju? Baki asks while looking at Pakura. But that's impossible, for a Biju cannot be killed, no matter what. But then where is the Kyuubi? Yashimaru asks. I think I know where it is, Pakura says. Baki was silent as Yashimaru looked in between both Pakura and him, as he understood what they might have thought. You don't think that? Yashimaru asked. The silent questions spoken between them, but at the nods he received made him believe. He is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Next day, October 21st. Sunagakure no Sato. It was a brand new day. The San siblings and Naruto were in the park with 2 new friends with them. Their new friends were both girls going by the name of Maki and Matsuri. They were new friends that joined their group when they pranked the academy. Molly was quiet, uptight, but eventually helped them in their adventure when Kankuro challenged her. Well, she had a lot of fun that day. Maki is also the student of Pakura, whereas Matsuri is from a civilian family and got admission in the academy after passing the entrance examination. Truth to be told, Naruto was jealous of them as he still have to wait for 1 more year to start the academy. Even the Kazekage siblings got to enter the academy this year, and Gaara was a year youngest than him. All of them were discussing what they will do today as all of a sudden Naruto, in a stroke of brilliance, thought something as he saw some Chunin pass by. He gave a creepy smile as he turned towards Gaara. "Hey Gaara, how much control do you have over your sand?" he asks while looking at Gaara. The other blinked and looked at each other as Gaara replied to him, "I have very good control over my sand." "Why do you ask?" "I just thought of a brilliant prank, but we need to add few more people in the prank in your sand." As he said this, he gave an insane laugh that would have made Shikaku proud. Inside Gaara's mind, a huge sand raccoon dog looked at the scene as he cried tears for being stuck in such docile human who was ignoring him, and as the insane raccoon he is, he doesn't like to be ignored, especially not by his host. He was quite impressed of the laugh the little kid gave while speaking. "Nice try, kid. But not good enough, Shikaku, though. Why can't I have that kid as my host? At least he would have been a bit interesting to work with, and I could have forced him to let me out time to time." Unknown to him, what has been planned by Naruto would make him very useful in the next prank. Few hours later, Kazekage Raza looked at the scene in front of him. As usual, the children in front were not harmed in any way, shape, or form, but were colored as if they had paint war. It was a surprise when two new children were introduced as their friend and partners in crime. What more surprising was few Chunin whose gate duty shift changed were also there with a guilty expression on their faces. And the most surprising was the division that was in the shinobi. Granted, the division was there the last time, but it was more of one-sided as the female were glaring at the male population in the room. This time it was mixed as one side was glaring at the other. No racism, feminism, sexism or any other ism. But they were glaring at each other, even Baki, Pakura and Yashimaru, and according to him, Baki was the most mature of the three of them, till today that is. Their appearance, all of them were colored head to toe and their clothes were baggy as if they had sands in their clothes. Oh, wait a minute, he looked closely at one of the genin's pants, and to his disbelief sand was coming out of them. "I don't get paid enough for this shit," he thought to himself. How did this begin? Well, he didn't know, for he was going to learn about it now. He looked at his right to see his secretary with a pout on her face as if she missed something very interesting. He remembered that she came in here telling him about some kind of war going on in the east district of his village among some of his shinobi. Imagine his surprise when reached there with his ANBUs on tow to see that his shinobi and kunoichi were busy in having a paint war among each other instead of doing missions and giving reports. He looked towards the east district to see that it was still covered in rainbow. "I swear I haven't even some of the colors before in my life." Yes, it was that much of the art that his shinobi had showed on that place, including the kids in front of him. And truthfully, he never though he will see a part of Suna this much colorful. He heaved a sigh. "Well, what are you waiting for? An invitation? Give me a report of what happened," he barked as the chunin in the front with the kids with guilty expression. Kanzuya, he supposed the name was, spoke. "Lord Kazekage." Kanzuya spoke. "It was just before our shift was about to end that we were approached by the kids. They asked for our assistance and promised not to prank us today." He paused as he looked at the ground as Kazekage tapped his fingers and spoke. "Go on, I want to know what happened after that." The offer was quite enticing, as not only were we not going to be pranks and will be spared of the regular humiliation, but we will also be able to have fun, so we accepted after pondering on it. Also, some of the civilians also decided to help them in their advent. After that we waited for the victim. Flashback few hours earlier at the East Gate. At the East Gate, two team of genin were coming back to their village after a joint B-rank mission assigned to them by the Kazekage. As they reached the gate, they saw the Chunin gate guards were unusually distressed and looked quite weak. "What happened here?" one of the Jonin leader asked. Others looked around to see that the place unusually quiet and calm, and not a single person was on road. Unknown to them, the sand behind them started shifting behind them, forming a shape. The Chunin guards turned towards them, but instead of replying turned extremely pale. Seeing their expression, the two Jounin and their genins looked at the ground as a huge shadow looked over them. All of them turned to look back, and to their horror a huge raccoon dog nearly as tall as the gate was shadowing them. "Hee hee 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 hee." The raccoon laughed. "New prey, I wonder how you will taste like. My mother demands to be fed the blood of the strongest. Which one of you is the strongest?" The sand raccoon moves towards them as the genins were frozen in fear. One of them was on the verge of fainting. One of them tried to act but found out he was unable to move. The Jounin tried to move but found out the sand was stopping his body movements. "Mother demands blood." The apparent smaller version Shikaku called menacingly. The raccoon then moved slowly towards them, opening its jaw as if to consume them. The shinobi closed their eyes and waited for the inevitable. The raccoon got extremely close and closed its jaw one more time and opened it again as to devour them. Boo! The reaction was immediate. The genins fainted. One Jounin screamed and the other soiled his pants, while the last one screamed like a little girl. The sand raccoon broke apart and fell on them, covering them head to toe. and there was sounds of laughing coming from behind them. The one who soiled his pants turned to look at them and saw 6 children, 3 of them children of Kazekage. One they have seen with Pakura and 2 unknown laughing at their expense. The screaming Jounin also looked back to see that including the children the 2 Chunin guards who were there before looked well and were laughing beside them. Behind them were few more shinobi and civilians alike laughing at their expense. As what happened dawned on them, anger and rage took over, the genin also waking up and looking around confused as though they also understood what happened, also overcame by rage seethed and looked at the cause of humiliation. Soon enough another case began. Flashback end. As what happened was reported, the Kazekage looked shocked and also afraid regarding Shikaku, but he had another question in mind. Okay, that I understood, but surely it didn't resulted in the paint war, he said. No, it did not. Then what did? The Chunin responsible for this challenge insulted Ramen. Kazekage looked stunned at that revelation. Why will you talk about Ramen of all things while escaping? Oh, we escaped them. It was 15 minutes after we escaped them. We met him at the East District. Kazekage rubbed his eyes in frustration and looked at them and said, Explain. Flashback 15 minutes after the escape. It has been 15 minutes since Naruto, along with the Kazekage siblings, 2 new friends, Maki and Matsuri, and the Chunin gate guards were walking in the market looking for some place to eat after escaping their latest victims. Naruto was looking for a ramen stand with Gaara helping him finding the stand, as he was also intrigued by the salivating explanation that was given by the leader of the ramen cult, making new members for the said cult. Why can't we find a single ramen stand? Naruto said while looking around the market. How can you guys not have food of gods in this village? This question was majorly directed towards the Chunin gate guards who were now guarding the children with them, or they with the children. Both the Chunins, named Kanzuya and Kazama, were quite wary of answering him. Both of them saw in the past few minutes as he was looking for a ramen stand that he practically worships ramen, whether it be instant cup ramen or cooked. For him ramen was something that was served to God, with the ramen stand being the holy temple and the chef as the chief priest and waiter as the assistant to chief priest. And as the lines explained, it was as if he was creating a new religion or a chief of the ramen cult, and as such they were not going to say it to his face about how eating too much of ramen was bad for his health. This guy was very obsessive and protective of his favorite meal, and telling him that would put the 2 of them in his shit list, and they were not going down in that list, considering that some of his pranks were embarrassing and both of them didn't want it to be pranked again alone, by making the mistake. Also the fact that the new member of the cult happens to be an insomniac child who is also the Jinchuriki for Ichibi no Shikaku, the psychopath one-tailed tanuki who has fetish for human blood. So yeah, they were not going to say anything about ramen in front of these 2. But unfortunately one person didn't get the memo, and this person happens to be the very same Chunin who issued the challenge amongst them. Why in the world would you be eating ramen for lunch? The Chunin. As I have yet to name the no-name Chunin, I have decided to call him Jeru. So Jeru, who insulted the ramen, also ignored the subtle warnings from his fellow Chunin, which included waving his hands in a frenetic motion, while shaking their heads in negative. But being the ignorant person he is, he ignored them and continued on with his speech. Don't you know that ramen, while good in taste, is not good for the health of people? Now before he could continue, Naruto interrupted him with the Kazekage siblings, and Matsuri and Maki looked at them from behind Naruto. Take that back, Naruto spoke. Ramen is the food of God, created by his own hands and his gift to the humanity. What? Was the collective thoughts that were through the mind of everybody in that premises that included Yashimaru, Baki and Pakura, who came after a night-long research. Except Gaara, who was now more interested in the food more than a viewer. Yashimaru, who looked towards Gaara, saw the curious expression on his face, decided to interrupt Naruto for his rambling. Naruto, we understand that you like ramen very much, but it could be very harmful for your health, Yashimaru states. Hey Yashimaru, I get what you are saying, but it is also one of the dishes where you can add other things, which includes vegetables and more healthy things. This time it was Pakura who said it, and now an argument between Yashimaru and Pakura took place as Baki and other ninjas tried to dissuade the debate on ramen. It is also the reason of your short height, Jeru spoke as Naruto stood frozen at his spot, his hair covering his eyes and his body shaking. The rest all also looked at Jeru with wide eyes. I mean, with the way you are talking, I think you eat the food 24/7, and considering your height, I think I am right dash. Before he could continue, Naruto threw a colored water balloon at Jeru's face. Jeru, with pink face, glared at Naruto. He tried to open his mouth to speak, but another balloon struck him before any words came out. Naruto was holding another balloon in his hands as he was being glared at by Jeru. He threw the balloon that was in his hands, but Jeru decided to put his skills in use as he caught it in his hands. He smirked but failed to notice another balloon in the shadow of the first one, and what happened was that he got hit in the face with the third balloon. This time he was angry as his face was covered in 3 different colors. He decided to throw the balloon that was in his hands. But unlike Naruto, he forgot one tiny detail, that he was not a prankster like Naruto Uzumaki, and unlike Naruto, he forgot that Naruto Uzumaki was of short stature. That's how he failed to see the fact that he threw the balloon wrong, and that balloon he threw, instead of hitting Naruto, decided to hit Pakura in the face. And then there was silence in which you could hear the crickets chirping. How the god in the desert was unknown to everybody, but this silence was broken by the sound of laughter. Broken by the sound of laughter of an idiot. Broken by the laughter of idiotic Yashimaru, who looked at Pakura covered in neon green color. Pakura was seething in rage, and Yashimaru laughing didn't help her. She felt someone tugging at her leg and looked down to see Naruto looking up at her, and holding out his hands in which he was holding a balloon. For her, understanding what he was trying to tell her, she took the balloon from her hands and aimed towards Yashimaru, after getting hit. Yashimaru was covered in bright yellow color, and he also took a colored water balloon and threw it towards the Pakura and Naruto, who dodged the balloon, and it went sailing past them towards the other ninjas. Gathered there and struck another. This started the war of colors amongst the ninjas who were present, and slowly the ninjas were divided amongst each other on the basis of food. They were throwing colored balloon at each other, and the best was Gaara, who was flinging various balloon at once with the help of his sand. Soon the whole district was covered in rainbow colors. In the midst, Pakura and Yashimaru glared at each other. The standoff was very akin to that of the Old West movies, but instead of guns they were holding colored water balloon in his hands. Both of their hands were twitching verily, but before they could do anything, Baki decided to interrupt them in style. In front of Baki were several balloons, and in his hands was giant-ass fan. He was twitching crazy and was glaring at Yashimaru and Pakura, and in his anger he used wind release, great breakthrough, and every single balloon in front of him went in all direction, including the walls of houses, both in and outside. People and shinobi alike were hit by at least one balloon. After a brief pause, they all picked one more balloon to throw, but it was stopped by the presence of their Kage, who was looking at the scene with what was irritation and amusement. Flashback ends. Now Kazekage looked at the Chunin and the rest of the group, and the current train of thoughts were currently battling with himself whether he should laugh or cry out in frustration. He looked towards the East District again to see the art. He looked back at the kids and then back at the East District and decided he will leave the kids alone as they are kids but his shinobi. He nodded to himself and spoke their punishment. I have decided all of the shinobi and kunoichi will clean the East District of the color that you have painted it with. But what about the kids? They are also responsible for it, Jeru said in protest, but calmed down as Raza turned his eyes on him. I will think about it. What I want to know, what happened? Did you not challenge the child for this competition that is issued? So why do I found out that after 5 days of catching them, why today you were unable to catch him and his friends, but also fought amongst your comrades on some petty issues such as your favorite food? Now every single person bowed their head in shame. But even though it was happening, Jeru decided to argue again. Yes, but there is still a day left, and after being pranked by him I know that I will not only be able to catch him but catch him while he is trying to prank any of us. Apparently it was wrong thing to say in the presence of Uzumaki prankster. So you think you could stop me from speaking someone, huh? Naruto spoke in an eerie voice, but before Jeru can speak something again, Naruto continued, then it's settled, I will use my do prank on you. He pointed at one shinobi and you. He pointed at another, and you. He then spread out his hands pointing at all of them and all of you. I will do a grand prank on all of you. Every one of you will be pranked by me, not even the Kazekage would be left alone for this prank. You all will be the victim. Naruto gave a sinister laugh, cackling like a madman. Every single shinobi and kunoichi decided it was best to currently glare at the prideful Chunin as Naruto and the children went out of the office. So, you were saying, Chunin? Kazekage spoke in irritation as the Chunin gulped as the kunoichi cracked their knuckles and shinobi gave him a sinister smile. You know what? I have decided that instead of all of you, only Chunin Jeru is going to clean the East District alone. Is that clear? Jeru widened his eyes as he looked towards the East District and the art of the shinobi. No, the peaceful village of Sands was, contradictory to the popular thinking, was quite a beautiful place. The bland village in the desert housed some beautiful places. That included oasis. The dome-shaped buildings and underground lakes were few of the places that people would love to visit when they visit this village, and comparing beauty of one village to the another would be quite a hassle. I mean, every village is based on the name of the said villages, and according to its the village is quite a beautiful place. For example, the village hidden in the leaves or Konoha is quite a beautiful place, and its beauty comes from the forests that surrounds the village. The beauty of Suna comes from the sandy deserts that is surrounding the village, and just like this the rest of the village except for the bloody mist, and that is due to civil war that is. Now talking about the village and comparing them to each other would not make much of a difference except for the fact that currently Suna is quite peaceful. On normal days the peace would be quite welcome. But today, peace was something else. It was not peace, it was quiet in the village, as every shinobi and kunoichi were on alert. More than ever some were even looking left and right, and one was even checking the earth for pit and holes, all because of the quiet. Not just quiet, it was very quiet, very very quiet, eerily quiet, sinisterly quiet. And why was there so much quiet? Well, yesterday, one child, more specifically Naruto Uzumaki, the prankster from hell, the last Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, had issued a challenge of pranking the whole of the shinobi corps including the Kage, the clans and the elders. Why was this challenge such a big deal? This challenge was a big deal because, if they failed to catch those demon children in less 30 minutes, then the whole of the corps would be put in the training program designed especially by the Kage, and his training method was known for being very strict and absurd. Nothing compared to Konoha's Mado Guy's training regime, but still quiet and absurd training regime. And none of them wanted to be a part of said training, and so they were watching their every single move all the while trying to keep away from harm. And what the said prankster was doing? Nothing much except for playing tag with his partners in crime that included the Kazekage children. Maki and Matsuri were playing tag, innocently, well as innocent as one could get, but unknown to them and every other shinobi and kunoichi, a shinobi Jera and, hey guys, correct me if I am wrong about the name of the guy who is the reason that Suna is stuck with Naruto pranking them, was getting quite agitated. He was looking for a way to destroy those nuisance who are the reason that he got embarrassed in front of fellow shinobi and kunoichi including the Kage. Well, not destroyed, but you get the point. He won revenge on the 6 little troublemakers in front of them. But for that to happen he must have followers. And who are better than the shinobi who are getting quite antsy at their current situation, which is because of him. Maybe he should ask politely this time instead of trying to be all heroic, not the emphasis on heroic, and outspoken, so that he just did as explained his plan to a jounin named Zandu, an OC, not from Marvel's GOTG. Hey Zonda, he whispered quietly. Zonda sighed and looked at him with a scowl. What is it this time, Jeru? He asked in the same low whisper. Why are we not capturing them now? Jeru asked. Because they haven't done anything right now, Zonda said as if it was obvious as Jeru looked at him in terror and replied. So you are waiting for them to do something wrong to capture them? Yes, oh for the love of all of you. Jeru pointed to every single shinobi hiding in the vicinity. Are waiting for them to do something wrong so that you could stop them. There were several nodding of heads and few who looked very sheepish, the newly minted genin. So tell me what the F***ck are you trying to stop them from? He roared. Because if you said pranks, I swear that I will kill you and make things out of your bones and skins. He calms down as people started to look in his direction. How the heck are we stopping them making pranks when we wait for them to do the prank? He told the shinobi surrounding them. If we want to stop ourselves from getting humiliated by them, then we need to catch them before they prank us, before they even try to prank. Heck, we should have captured them last night and shoved all of them in a cellar room, locked the said room and hid the key and stack of keys. But what are we doing? We waiting like an idiot, waiting for them to do something against us. I am not able to sit to shit. Heck, I wasn't even able to piss in peace. And do you know that I haven't had my lunch today? And do you know why? There were several shaking of heads and no, as all the shinobi were now staring at him. I was at a restaurant waiting for my lunch to arrive when the 6 of them went past me and smiled. Do you know how scary that was, watching all 6 of them smile at me as if I was a fresh meat and they will devour me anytime? And I knew then and there that there was something wrong with my food. As we all remember the academy incident quite clearly, there were several nods of head and few shuddered in disgust, and I did not want of what happened at the academy happen to me. So I left my food and promised to eat it after I have captured the 6 of them and joined. And what do I get? All of the shinobis waiting like the idiots to do something while none of us are going to engage them. He took a break and looked at others as a realization dawned on them, and he nodded yes. We should capture them right while they are playing or whatever, and if we capture them now, it means our rest of the day we will be safe from the humiliation, safe from the training, but more importantly safe from the pranksters, from hell." As he said, there was a collective sound of cheer as all of them came out of their hiding place while heading towards the place where the six were playing. As all of them were heading, they all missed the smirk that adorned at each of their faces. Jeru in the lead stopped at the entrance of the park where the six were playing. "Uzumaki," he called out, "your tyranny over us will end today." "Wasn't it ending today, one way or the other?" one of the genin said from the back. "We won't be humiliated by you, Kazekage siblings, or your two new friends." Jeru spoke again. "We have been quiet a few times," one whispered from the back. "Today we will capture you," he spoke. "What were we doing for the last 5 days?" another whispered. "And we will finally get the recognition we deserve." "The recognition I deserve," the later was spoken with a whisper, but still there were a lot of nods. "And we finally be free from the training that the Kazekage might have laid out for us." At this there were quiet a few whimpers from the back. "But for all of that we need to capture you and your friends, so that none of you will prank us and will humiliate us in front of our own village." Jeru then turned to look at the six of them, but right now, instead of the previous tone, now he had a pleading look on his face. "So can you please let us capture you?" he asked in a pleading tone, lips quivering as all of the people around sweat dropped at his antics. Naruto then put his hand under his chin as if he was pondering something. "Let me just think," he began. "What do you guys think?" he asked his friends that were with him. Temari took the pose similar to Naruto while Kankuro looked at the sky. Gaara remained silent as Maki and Matsuri looked at Temari and Naruto. "Well, let me just give you an answer," Temari said. "The answer will be," she began, as everybody else except for the kids came a bit forward so they could listen to her. "Yes." "Really?" one of the jounin asked in disbelief and hope. "Of course not," Temari said again. "Did you really think we will surrender that easily? We already pranked father." She pointed towards herself. "Kankuro and Gaara and the clans were already hit. Granted, none of them will acknowledge the fact until late in the evening, but the fact is that they got high, and now it's your turn." And with that their hopes shattered like a mirror, and few of them started getting angry as Naruto, Kankuro and Matsuri openly laughed at them while Maki and Temari gave a smirk and Gaara quietly laughed at them from behind his hand. "That's it!" Jeru exclaimed. "Everybody catch them!" he shouted as people, mainly civilian, deserted the areas. Last time most of them were covered in color. Now the only people surrounding the place were the shinobi and the children, and all of them advanced towards the children with full determination. They started running, all the while totally missing the smirk and smiles that adorned their faces, and finally they took notice, when the ground beneath them started shifting, and half of the ground around the park caved in a circular shape as the shinobi fell into a large pit with Naruto and Ko standing in the center laughing their asses off. As all of them stirred and tried to stand, all the while muttering a string of curses under their breaths, they all noticed a large shadow that now towered over them. All of them looked up to see several hands of sand holding onto buckets that filled up to the brim with black liquid substance and feathers. They all now had a scared expression as all of the sand hands tilted the bucket's wide substance, and then covering all of them in feathers. They all noticed that all of the kids over the edge were laughing at them. "You guys are idiots!" Naruto exclaimed. "Yeah." Kankuro continued. "If you guys would have left us alone, then you might not even be in this situation." At this all of them now started glaring at the spot where Jeru was supposed to be. He was lucky that in the confusion none of them were able to identify him, as now all of them were in black tar and feathers. "Now we will see all of you guys later," Matsuri exclaimed, and then all of them were lifted off the ground with the help of Gaara's sand. "Let's see you guys come out of there and try to catch us," Naruto shouted while sticking his tongue out, as all of the shinobi below the fumed with anger, and all of them shouted as one. "Uzumaki!" In the afternoon, after throwing almost half of the Suna shinobi in the pit, the 6 children or hell spawn were seen running from the rest of the corps who were not there. The shinobi chasing consisting of Baki and Yashimaru in lead. A few blocks away few of the shinobi remained in hiding and dug a pit, and covered it with sand. You know the typical trap of making pit where the one who made the pit waits for the victim to fall in the pit. The oldest trap in the history of mankind. Yeah, that was the kind of trap they made and covered it with sand and leaves. Yeah, leaves. As soon as they saw that the hell spawn were running towards them, they quickly hid behind with camouflages. That included a nearby window, around the corner of a shop, and a bush. How it was thought that a bush would be a good cover was unknown, and who was the dumb ninja to think that a green bush would be a good disguise at a place which is in the middle of desert? As the pranksters came closer and closer, the area around them grew in suspense, as it was the anticipation was great, and the world around them turned slow. All were moving in slow motion as the hell spawns came closer to the pit. The smirks and manic smiles on the faces of the shinobi grew larger and larger with each step the children took. The civilians looked at them, shinobi in hiding, as if they have lost their minds, as they looked like a certain demented deranged raccoon. All of them were expecting different things, most of which included the hell spawn, the 6 children, running into their trap and falling in the pit as they will drop feathers and tar and coke and piss and glue and colors, basically everything that they could think which will not kill the children. What they really didn't expect was the 6 children, all 6 of them, to pass over the pit as if it was not even there. They moved over the pit step by step as the rest of the shinobi grew wide-eyed as the 6 of them moved over the pit. Not jumping, not falling, not sling, they were moving as it was the cold hard floor. All of them kept watching as the 6 hell spawn kept on moving forward, as the pit cover that they dug open didn't even budge from the weight of the 6 children as they kept on running. After the 6 of them had passed, the shinobi in the hiding watched as the other ninjas that included of various genin, chunin, jounins and fused sand and running after him. As they drew nearer, they expected the same thing that happened with the children, i.e., watching them effortlessly move over the pit as their ingenious trap fails with epic proportion. Everything slowed down. They again waited with bated breath as their fellow shinobi and kunoichi came closer to the trap. As the first foot that came on top of the ground, it caved in, and what happened next was that every shinobi following started to fall in the pit. Few of the skilled ones were able to save themselves until the one with not much skills struck them in the back with full momentum and made them fall in the pit, and then themselves fell in the said pit. The end result was the huge shinobi pile up in the pit with every one laying on top of each other. The one who dug the pit slowly peeked into the pit as the ones below started to glare at them with hate that would make the Kyuubi proud and Shikaku cackle, and ones slowly retracted their heads as the killer intent became very clear and very dangerous, and was enough to make all 3 of the Sannin wary of the ones releasing this much ki. With the hell spawns, the 6 children led by Naruto were running away from the group of shinobi as they continued running from the shinobi behind them. A few blocks away, some of the ninjas, probably the same ninjas that created the pit, were creating a genjutsu as they blocked the road and created the genjutsu, making it look like that the path was being used by several civilians. Soon the hell spawns were nearing the area and that the genjutsu was in, and this time all the shinobi hid like the competent ninjas they were. Wait a minute, why is there a bush again? No, a better question, who is the sensei of this idiot who taught that a bush is an actual cover in the middle of a desert? And you know what, we will look into it later on. For now, let's just look at the children that were running away from the Ambu core. As they reached the location, the people who made the trap waited with awaited breaths. As the child drew nearer to the trap, everything went slow-mo. The steps were being counted, the breath became deeper. Adrenaline of everybody high, smiles appearing on the faces of the soon-to-be champions, aka hell spawn catchers, and again they totally missed the smirk that was forming on the faces of the children. Results: the children kept on running and went as if the illusion road was actually an road, not a genjutsu. The shinobi in the hiding came out of the places that they were hiding, and what they didn't keep in mind was that the hell spawns were being followed by and what they had was a huge massive accident which resulted in the piles of shinobi/kunoic lying in the ground with swirls in place for their eyes. Meanwhile, with the kages in the council meeting, the Kazekage and Hokage were massaging a huge headache as the council continued to drone about the various things that according to them were useless. All the while Raza was looking at Tajuro as he shifted in his seat and suddenly stood up. Lord Kazekage Tajuro started as he greeted his leader and turned to the leader of the Leaf Village, Lord Hokage. "It is an honor to be in your presence," he said with a bow, but both of the leaders and few members were sure there was hint of bitter/venomous tone somewhere in there, but was professionally covered by the mask of words. "I thank you for the agreeing for this meeting and for the rerouting of the missions from the Wind Daimyo." Now this was genuine, and the people in the council except from the Leaf were surprised to hear something genuine from his mouth. Tajuro then continued, "And I wish to know, what do you think about the plans that has been proposed to you?" "You don't have anything to thank me for," Tajuro Dano Hokage replied. "I did what was necessary to improve the relationship of 2 villages. And regarding the plans, some of the trade routes and negotiation is quite good, and I wholeheartedly agree with those, but the academy part one have to discuss with the fellow council members in the village. Regarding the exchange program, as I can see it as a way to boost the relationship of our 2 villages and also increase the strength and might of the 2 villages." At this the members of the council smiled. I am happy that you love the idea, Hokage Danoraza said with a smile, and Tajiro spoke again. Lord Kazekage is right, Lord Hokage. This idea that our Kazekage has proposed, and as you had said, will be boost to not only village relationship but also might and strength. He then paused for a moment, then continued, Lord Hokage, I have also heard of the rumors that you have brought a child with you. At this the Hokage along with Kazekage and the elder duo narrowed their eyes but nodded nonetheless, also that he has a bloodline that has not been seen in Konoha or been documented before. You are right, Elder Tajiro. Well, a part of it was truth, as the many aspects of the bloodline were in a scroll that could only be read by the people that Naruto trusted or Naruto himself, so the documented part, yeah, that was total bust on both ends of the truth scale. And currently he's the sole bearer of this bloodline, am I correct? At the Hokage narrowed his eyes as he saw a devious glint in the eyes of the elder. You are correct, that Elder Tajiro. The Hokage started as both of the Kage felt danger coming from the man itself as he continued the questions he was asking, but we are here talking about improving the relationship between our two villages. I don't see what talking about child under my care will help boost the relationship between our villages. Slowly the eyes of both the Kages, including some of the members, went wide as they understood what the devious schemer was planning. The Hokage turned to look at Kazekage as he saw that he also didn't know about what Tajiro was planning. Seeing the understanding dawning on both the Kages, Tajiro quickly continued, as the Uzumaki child is the sole heir of the bloodline like that which have been explained, there are high chances that he will be training for being a shinobi, and as such his life will be in constant danger. And I believe that your council will not let a bloodline like that end in such short time, so they all will be looking for a partner for that child, he said, as every member now understood what he was presenting at the table, and if the current company of the said child was anything to be said, then sure as hell they understood as what or who were being presented. And they will not only look for the partner in their own country, but there are also chances that they will look for it in the neighboring or ally country for a strong partner. He paused for a few moments. So here I am presenting a perfect solution to not only boost our relationship but also secure the future of two important bloodlines from both of the countries. He paused for a dramatic effect. I present the marriage contract between Naruto Uzumaki and Temari no Sabuku. I present the marriage contract between Naruto Uzumaki and Temari no Sabuku. After what Tajiro had stated, the council room was deathly quiet. The Kazekage was seething because he knew what Tajiro had done, presenting such a notion in the middle of the meeting where both of the Kages could not do anything, because he knew that many of the council members are already looking at the benefits from such proposition, and the Hokage could not just reject it, for it might start a possible war between the two nations. He looked towards his fellow Kage, who looked agitated and disbelieving. Hiruzen knew that bringing Naruto would cause trouble, but he did not keep in mind the political troubles that might have followed. He cannot just reject such offer, because as a Kage he knew that with a bloodline like Naruto many of the council will be looking for a way to acquire it. Heck, back in Konoha, if the people knew about it, he would marriage proposals / demands before he will hit his teens. Before we proceed further, I would like all of you to see the bigger picture here. Tajiro started. We all know sooner or later the rest of the elemental nation will learn of such a bloodline. A bloodline that could obtain other elemental bloodline by eating the elements, or restore their reserves by consuming the elements they are aligned to. And if they learn, then there are high chances that they will try to acquire said bloodline, especially the Cloud. After all, the shinobi knows about the previous Uzumaki kidnapping attempt that the Cloud did. At this the eyes of the Kages and the elder widened, because they didn't thought anybody else will be informed of young Naruto heritage. There will be several attempts from other nation for said bloodline. If not like that, then there will be attempts, and considering both Kumo and Iwa are currently against us, considering both the nation loathes ours, especially yours for obvious reasons, more so Iwa than Kumo, and while Kiri may be currently in a civil war, the resistance would not stop at the chance of gaining such a bloodline. Not only that, but if I may have a guess, your village may have this bloodline, and as such there are high chances that your council are currently will be looking for a way to make sure this bloodline preserves. He then stopped for a moment and looked at the other council members as to why I offered the hand of Sabuku no Temari, the daughter of Kazekage. We know that as a member of a shinobi family, and a family as prestigious as the Sabuku family who has the famed Iron Sand bloodline, Temari will become a wonderful and strong kunoichi. So as to show our respect and trust, one presented a kunoichi to be with a lot of potential, and the union of such strong heirs of two family will surely sire children with lots of potential, all the while strengthening the bonds of villages. Also I can see that young Uzumaki and the Kazekage siblings are getting closer day by day, so I took the chance of bringing it closer. You have provided quite a proposition for us to Jurodano, the Hokage stated with a tight smile once me and my companions reach Konoha. I will be sure to present it to the council. He didn't have any plans of reading that contract or actually showing it to any of the council member, knowing that there are high chances that the council will actually agree to it. His train of thought stopped again when Tejuro spoke up. You won't have to worry, Hokage-sama. He said I already took the liberty of sending a contract to Konoha with the proposition, which copies is also going to the daimyo of Wind and Fire Nation. Shit was the collective thought process of the Kages and the older siblings in the council, knowing full well the meaning behind the words, and if the smile on Tojiro's face was anything to get by, then he was quite sure that the chances of the daimyos to accept the proposition was quite high. Few hours after the meeting, as the rest of the councilor went home with leaving only the Kazekage and the honored siblings with the Hokage, all of the present people let out a sigh, knowing that the problem that have risen due to one of the councilor Hokage all the while wanted to be angry at the situation that Naruto has landed them in. Even if a bit unknowingly, he wanted to cry because of the political trouble that may occur due to this situation. He looked at the Kazekage, who also seemed to be agitated. He can't blame him, as he just started to get his family together, and here is now because of one person the family will be separated earlier than it should be. Hiruzen then looked outside to see that it was now evening. All of the present people looked at each other and sighed again, and as they were about to stand up and call it the day when Tuka, Kazekage's secretary, knocked at the doors. Lord Kazekage, the shinobi has arrived with the children, Tuka said with full amusement showing on her face. Kazekage let out a sigh again and sat down. The Hokage and the honored siblings sat down with him as he motioned for Tuka to let the shinobi and Kunoichi in. What they needed something amusing after that terrible headache. As they entered the room, the amusement in the room kept on increasing. The ninjas of Suna in question looked like they went to hell, had a one-on-one duel with the demons there, came back, had a fight with Shikaku, who sent them back to hell again, and they repeated the process at least 10 times, no less. Their appearance, they were covered in tar feathers, colors ranging from neon green to neon orange to blood red, face and clothes covered with sand. Some of them also had bruises. The children in the front looking up at them with smile on their faces. So how much time did it take now? The Kazekage asks with mirth in his voice, and they starts to recount the tale, even the impossible things like them moving over the pit and running in the wall without crashing, and the fact that we're not caught by any of them once. And the only reason they caught them in the end was because all of them were tired and were hungry. The Kazekage let out an amused chuckle as looked at the shinobi and then turns towards the kids. Well, Naruto, you did prank the shinobi as you said, but the clans? The council members and us Kage have yet to be pranked, he says, but stops chuckling as the present shinobi grimaced and the children smirked. Don't worry, Lord Kazekage. Now this surprised everybody because he never speaks in formal way, as you were one of the first few people to get pranked, and there is at least 30 minutes left before the prank's on. Council members and the Kage and the clans spring up. Now this stopped the Kazekage from laughing, as the kid basically told him that he will be pranked and he will be the last to be pranked. He then directed his heads towards the shinobi, then the people who were already present in the office, and then back at the kids. I suppose you are not going to tell us what you have planned for us, he said while looking at all of them, who in turn snickered. Now where would be the fun in that? So can you tell us how did you pull off some of the feats in the said prank? Like running into the wall without crashing, running on top of a pit, and several other feats. One word, Naruto spoke genjutsu. Wait a minute, Kazekage spoke with shock in his voice. You kids just started your training and have only unlocked the chakra. So how come you 6 trapped the shinobi and kunoichi in a genjutsu? He asked this question with shock in his voice. I said they were trapped in genjutsu, Naruto said, looking straight at Kage. I never said it was us who used it. It was someone else who helped us with the genjutsu. At this both Kakashi and Baki came forward. Baki and Kakashi, the Kazekage spoke in confused tone. Want to tell us why did you decided to help them? Was asked. We were the first to be pranked, Lord Kazekage, Baki states, and because of the prank they got leverage over us. What was the leverage? The Kazekage asks. The only answer he got was a distorted mumbling from both of the strongest shinobi. Can you speak clearly? The Kazekage said to both of them. Both of them looked at each other, then at the Kage, and said their respective reason. Ika Paradise. Under the Sun 2nd edition Baki. Ika Paradise. Around the World Golden Edition. Author signed Kakashi. You have Golden Edition was the first question that came out of the mouths of the present shinobi, including the Kage, as the female in the room glared at them. Ignoring the question, Kakashi spoke again. He told us that we will not be getting the books till we help them in their prank. This time everybody in the room were glaring at them, all the while they were playing at the playground. So you are telling me that while all of my shinobi were running around like headless chicken, these 6 were playing at the playground without any care in the world as you entranced them in a genjutsu in which they were running after them, and none of them even once thought that they might be in an illusion when the kids started flying while running? Yes, Lord Kazekage, both Baki and Kakashi said at the same time. Both of the Kages sighed as it was only just one part of the prank. The clans have yet to complain about the 6 terrors. You know what, today has been a long day, the Kazekage states, and we are all tired, so why not we go at our homes and the Hokage along with Naruto will go to the hotel. At this everybody nodded and slowly everybody started dispersing. As it came for the Hokage, Naruto and the honored siblings, Raza stopped them for a moment. Lord Hokage, Raza spoke. Elder Chio, Elder Ebizo, you are invited at my home for the dinner. At this all of them looked at him. As it was the last day today here, I thought it would be a good idea for the children to have a dinner here. He then turned towards Matsuri and Maki. Both of you are also invited along with your families. One of the ANBU will also be going with you to inform them. Both of their eyes widened as it was not every day that the leader of the village invite you to their home for dinner. After everybody went home, it was just him in the office. He then slowly turned as the screams started coming from the clan district. He then slowly looked from left to right waiting for something to happen. He then slowly turned his head towards the desk, jumped a bit in the chair to test if something was done to his chair. He then opened a drawer in the desk and brought out a very familiar orange book, and opened the dog-eared page. He marked with a perverted giggle which turned into a frown as he read and then turned into a pale disgust as he threw the book away with a loud shriek. After getting everything under control, he let out an equally loud yell of Uzumaki. Few blocks away from the Kazekage Tower with Naruto and Ko, Kankuro decided to speak up at the moment. He let out a content-sai music to my ears. He then looked towards his siblings and his friends who were smirking and slowly broke down laughing. Land of Demon in a village. The Land of Demon. Considering the name of the land did not actually contain lot of demons like its name. This land was quiet, peaceful thanks to the priestess. In one of the village there was a house with old Japanese building design near the forest, and an old couple could be seen working outside the house taking care of the plants and other things. Inside the house in one of the rooms there laid a girl of 20, maybe 22 years. The girl hair was scarlet red as half of his hairs covering her right eye. The girl was covered in the blanket with a jar of water near the stand. The couple came back inside the house and went to her room to check on her. As the older woman went forward to check on the girl, her left eye flew open and she jerked awake, sitting upright, and summoned a blade in her hand pointing at the couple. The girl was none other than Urza Scarlet. Urza Scarlet hadn't felt confused in a long time, and she was confused a lot of time. She felt confused and afraid when she was in tower. She was confused and betrayed when one of her dear friend turned his back on her while escaping the tower. She was confused when she saw a guild for the first time. She was confused when Master Makrov disbanded the guild. She was confused when she first used her magic. Heck, she was even confused when she first ate the strawberry cheesecake and still remembers the feeling of heaven it gave when she ate it. The last time she was confused when the battle between the Alvarez and Fiore started because Zeref attacked a member of her guild, more specifically Natsu Dragneel, which later turned into anger and rage. And after training and fighting for a long time she had not been confused, as most of the moments, she was driven by nothing else but pure adrenaline. After getting knocked during one of the attacks she remembered nothing else except for the anima portal with light and being sucking into it, and Natsu's scream, and nothing else except for the darkness. And now she is here, having woken up, in a house and in front of two people, both old but still looked vigilant and prepared if there was any kind of surprise attack from the redhead. Currently she was sitting in front them on chair as the sat opposite to her. She remembered waking up and pointing her sword, which knocked out of her hand with deadly precision by the old man that was sitting with old lady, with a kunai. After that what happened was what resulting in the old couple missing a wall from the room in the house. As she was now sitting at the table after everybody calmed down, that means the old lady calmed both of them down before both of them could throw another sharp thing at each other. How did she do it? She did it by using a frying pan to the head of the old man and threatened to do the same with her. Suffice to say she relented because for some reason she looked really dangerous with that pan. As she sat there she tried to gauge out her surroundings, as she knew that she was nowhere near Fiori, or if she was in Earthland, as she still remembers the feeling that the anime gives while someone is around it. She then turns her attention towards the elderly couple. The old man looked to be around 53 but still was in good shape if his throw and precision was anything to look at. He was wearing brown pants and a red shirt, also he was wearing a blue jacket over it and sandals. Pardon, shinobi sandals in his feet. The old man had purple eyes and his were a bit red in color. Not red like hers, which was more or less bordering on blood red or scarlet, which was actually her hair color, whereas his was more on the lighter shade of the red and looked like it was fading. He was currently staring her down from the other side of the table. She then turned to look at the lady. She also had red hair, but just like the old man, hers were also faded, while her eyes were indigo in color. She was wearing a blue kimono and had her hair in a bun while also wearing the shinobi sandals. The old woman slowly stood up and went to the kitchen. I see now that you have woken up, the old lady said as she moves toward the kitchen, and I am sorry for my husband's action. Considering that you woke up from a month-long coma and also looking at some of your injuries you have, I have to guess you last were in some kind life-death situation. She then came back from the kitchen with a kettle and few cups. Would you like some tea, dear? She asked while looking at her. Urza did not look sure what to think of the couple. On one hand it could be a well-placed illusion by the forces of Zeref. God knows what he could do with the fairy heart with him. But for some reason she knew it was not an illusion, as all of this not only she remembers bits of things that happened before she landed here, but also because the women looked and felt pretty real. Also the glare of the old man was pretty real. Not only that, but the taste of the tea was real, and it was quiet delicious tea. Now that all of us are settled, the old man looked at her. I would like to know why or how someone out of nowhere looking like she had went to hell and back with several injuries on her person gets dropped on someone's head while they are taking a walk in the forest, and after taking care of said person, how is she able to summon a sword out of nowhere, and point it at the person who might have saved her life? He spoke with a deadpan voice while looking at her. Urza on the other hand looked somewhat perplexed. But before she could say anything the old lady decided to interrupt her. Maybe, her husband dear, she said in a stern tone, why not let her have a breath? As you said, it possibly looked like as if she had barely survived her last ordeal. I am sorry for the inconvenience, Urza interrupted the scolding of the old man, and I am also apologize for pointing and attacking with my sword. You may hit me, groan. She let out a painful groan as she tried to stand up and bow for her apology. The old lady looked at her in worry, whereas the old man grumbled, don't mind if I do, which got him a scathing glare from his better half. I don't know who you are, the old man started as Urza sat back in the chair, and that is quite worrying as we thwack. I don't know if you are a threat or not. He spoke as he rubbed the side of his waist while glaring at the old lady. I definitely will, Urza said with much vigor, but can please tell me which part of Earthland I am on? At this she got blank looks from the old couple. She then decided to elaborate. Am I in Fiori or Bosco, maybe Ministyrol? As she continued to speak the old couple were now more confused than anything. Look girl, I don't know about Earthland or Fiori or anything, but currently you are in elemental nations, the old man spoke, and your exact location is the land of demons. Now before you summon another one of your swords and weapons, the land of demons does not have any actual demons, so you do not have to take your weapons out. He spoke as she stood up for battle after he said the land of demons, so just take deep breath and then tell us. And tell them she did, as she spoke of where she came from, her name, her guild in the last battle, and how might she have landed here. As she continued to speak the old couple got more and more confounded till the end of the tale. And then I woke up and then I saw you and thought the worst. It seems like you got here due to some kind of space-time ninjutsu. All they got was a baffled expression from the knight. And if that is right, then there are high chances that you are not in the right dimension, and according to you, your friend and the person you were fighting are also in this world right now, right? You are right, Urza says as she stands up again, and I have to find him before those bastards do. She was ready to move outside before she was again stopped by the old man. Now hold it right there, the old man ordered before she could move further. Do you even know where you are going to look, and how you are going to find him? Most importantly, how you are going to find him in this world if we don't know. Let's just say for an example you are using this weird magic of yours to summon the weapons, and you find him in one of those fights, or for your sake if somehow you come across one of the shinobi corps, there are high chances you would be killed, or most importantly they could also experiment on you, so you going out there right now may not be such a good idea. Especially in your current condition, Urza was ready to protest, but this time the old lady decided to step in the conversation. "We are not telling you to not look for him, dear," the lady spoke with a soothing voice, "but what we are telling you to take care of yourself first, and also gather knowledge of this place before you go out there to find him." "But I have to find him," Urza said. "I cannot just leave him out there with both of them out there." "Urza, look, I know you are worried about your friend. Heck, if I was in your place I would have done the same thing, but let me just tell you that going out there without a plan will not be good and could land both you and your friend in more trouble than you guys already are. I mean, you guys are an alternate world, and more importantly, I have not heard anything about the people that have spoken about, so you don't know that if they even are here," the old lady said again. Urza looked down as she contemplates what the old lady have spoken and knew that she was right. Slowly few tears dropped from her eyes as she shook slightly. "Hey, don't worry," the old lady said as she embraced her. "If your friend is here, we will help you in finding him, but right now we want you to stay here so that we could help you learn about where you are. But for that you have to let us help you." She was shaking for a few more minutes before she stopped and gave the old lady a smile which got her smiles from the couple. "Thank you, Mrs. Urza," starts but stops as she learns that she had yet to ask them their names and looks towards them. "Oh right, silly me, I didn't tell you our names, did I? Well, let me introduce us." She stood up and then said while bowing, "My name is Miyoko Uzumaki," she says, and points to her husband, "and this my husband, Kenshiro Uzumaki." Raza was sitting on one of the couch that was in the big hall where all of the family was present. It was in the night that the whole of the Sabuka family along with the honored siblings and also Maki was there with Pakura, as she was currently the guardian of Maki. He didn't know that one of the friend was an orphan. He looked at someone else, this time Matsuri, the girl who has a crush on his son, the youngest one of whom half of Subagakure is afraid of. She was being led by an older-looking woman who looked exactly like the chibi she was leading and had an expression like she didn't believe where she was and was waiting for something to happen to them. He will let Yashimara handle that. He was not good at making people feel at ease. Maybe it was something with his face that only his wife felt at home with him. He watched as Yashimara and Baki approached the woman with smile as they talked with her to calm her nerves, whereas the little girl decided to look for her friends, and as soon as she noticed that Maki, her friend, and Pakura, guardian of Maki and sometime caretaker of the Kazekage siblings, she decided to leave her mother's side to talk with her friend. Gaara, who was currently in with his sibling, walked out followed by Kankuro and Temari. Kankuro, who have more energy than both of them, and Temari, who has a mean temper which Raza believed that she inherited from their mother, because even if she did not get angry easily, once angered you will happily walk in the den with the crazy Tanuki who has been on hunger strike instead of going in front of her. Gaara, the one who is more calm and equally dangerous. Don't take his word for granted. All of the kids of his were calm and collected, and when trained properly in the arts of shinobi and kunoichi, each of them will be dangerous and forced to be reckoned with, but Gaara will be the most dangerous, as he has not only his bloodline but is also the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed Tanuki, making his chakra reserves larger than normal and giving him better control over the sand, and, with enough training, he could eventually surpass him. Raza watched as Matsuri's mother straightened herself. He almost sighed, thinking that she was one of another people who hated Gaara and were afraid of him, but stopped himself as he closely looked at her posture. Normally people who are afraid will have a slight tremble. Wouldn't be noticeable to civilian, but to a shinobi, much less the Kage, one could see it plain as a day. No, her stance was one of a person who went through training in the shinobi program, which means that she was one of the retired Kunuchi. Why the retirement this early on he didn't know, but could be because of several reasons. He looked closely as he understood that Matsuri's mother was wary of his son. He continued to look as then Matsuri decided to be bold and took hold of Gaara's hand and brought him along with his siblings towards her mother. He was surprised that her mother didn't took her daughter aside to admonish her for holding hands with the demon of the village. Well, she could that when she will return to home with her daughter. But to his surprise, the mother slowly loosened herself and gave a genuine smile to the 5 kids standing with her, even Gaara. Raza was lost in his musing that he almost missed the arrival of the Konoha shinobi. He then looked on as the one who actually became responsible for this meeting came striding in, looking at the things in the Sabuka house in wonder. Following him were the Hokage, Kakashi and Genma. Raza didn't know what to think of the child currently. One hand he is responsible for making his family and daily life more lively and erasing some of the walls that he somewhat unknowingly built among his family, but with what happened today in the meeting he didn't know what to think. He then looked below from his room as they entered. The being somewhat like Naruto greeted him with enthusiasm, which he returned with similar vigor. Matsuri's mother now had her eyes widened to an epic proportion. and greeted the Kage of the Leaf with stuttering and disbelief, whereas the trio of the Suna shinobi present along with the kids greeted them normally, to which she looked perplexed as she never saw any of them greet someone of such high caliber in such a casual manner. Raza finally decided to reveal himself to the gathered guests in his house as he slowly came down the stairs with his Kage robes on minus the veil and the hat. Greetings, Honorable Hokage. He still kept formality in his words just because some of his shinobi got close to the Konoha shinobi, because the kid doesn't mean he will not show them the deserved respect. He then turned towards the honored siblings. To you, to Elder Chio and Elder Ebizo. He then turned towards the last guest, greeting Mrs. He let it hang in air, looking for her to complete, and suddenly understanding what the leader of her village is asking of her, she replied hurriedly, Himiko Himabana, Lady Himabana. I thank you for accepting my invitation, he said with a bow. It was pleasure, Lord Kazakage. She said it with a bow towards the chief of the village, all the while her nervous too much for her to handle, and in her mind the reality was being broken. The leader of the village was not only invited her for dinner in the Sabuku home but was greeting her. After all, he was the most feared man before Gaara in the Sand Village and was a huge stickler for rules, so seeing him somewhat casual, especially in front of the leader of another village, was not only a surprise but was downright terrifying for her. All the while her mind was fully trying to think of a way she would not embarrass herself in front of such prominent figures of two villages. After having a small talk, Raza along with Yashimara led the present guests towards the dining hall. As all of them were seated around the table, Raza noticed something. All of the present company held a genuine smile on their face. Even the nervous Himiko had a smile when she started to talk to Pakura. This was the first time in last 5 years that this many, especially all of the family, was seated together in the dining hall of the Sabuku estate, as most the time all of them ate it in their rooms. So Himiko, if he remembered the name correctly, started. How did you kids meet? She asked while looking towards the kids. At this, even the adults turned their heads to look at the kids. Raza and Hiruzen both also looked at them, even if they were familiar with the story. Raza was totally floored when his youngest and eldest children decided to retell their adventure with energy that would put the green beast of Konoha to shame, which was exactly opposite of what was in their nature. Finding out later that they were sugar high from Kankuro, Naruto decided to tell them how the four of them actually met. We met them during the academy incident. An incident that the whole of Sunagakure will remember, as it was the day most of the shinobi went back home in humiliation with what happened to them, and the academy was closed to remove the smell and clean the whole of the academy. We were trying set some things in the washroom, but as none of boys were allowed in the girls' washroom, so Temari decided to do it herself, but it would have taken time, so me and Gaara decided to get some help. You decided to get help, Temari and Kankuro stated as they remembered thoroughly how the blonde decided to drag Gaara to get some more people to add in the prank for them. But Naruto decided to ignore them for the favor of retelling the story, so both me and Gaara went to look for some more people for help, but most of them ran away as they looked at us. At this, Gaara lowered his eyes a bit, and Himiko's eyes turned sympathetic. Then we met Matsuri. I decided to talk to her and asked her if she wanted to help, which I agreed to. She said with pride, no. You tried to said yes, but when Gaara came to talk you got red and started stuttering. I think you had fever at that time, he said while rubbing a finger under his chin, then shrugged his shoulders, not noticing the similar blush on her face. Knowing glance from the elders and her female friends, and confusing glance from Gaara and Kankuro, who tilted their head to the side. So I asked her if she was sick, but she shook her head and said yes. As the Temari and Matsuri decided to set those things in women washroom, Maki arrived and asked what we were doing, and she and I got into a fight. You called me grandma and uptight. I said you acted like a grandma. But after that she decided to include herself, saying that she could be fun. I am fun. And helped us, made it look like more real. So that's how you first met. At this all 6 of them nodded. Raza then decided that it was time for the kids to have fun and sent to play. Raza and Hiruzen along with Kakashi and Baki sat at one of the couch, whereas Pakura and Hitomi talked with each other in the kitchen as she decided to help Pakura with the dishes. Yashimara was keeping the eyes on the kids. Thank you, Lord Hokage, Raza finally stated. Because of you and Naruto my family is starting to get back together. He turned towards the room where the kids were. All of my kids are finally opening up to me, and I myself can see the positive changes in all of them, that is including my shinobi. I know that when Naruto will go, all of the shinobi will be there to send him off, as he knowingly or unknowingly left an impression on all of us. He then paused. I don't know what to think of the marriage contract that Tajiro has made, but a part of me is quite hopeful and glad that it is Naruto and not anyone else. At this Hiruzen was a bit surprised. And why is that, Lord Kazekage? Hiruzen asked. I don't know, but I am hoping for the good of both villages and the kids with the contract. Because I can feel that a lot of hard challenges are going to rise against this generation, and I am hoping for our kids to go through them. As Raza stated that, Hiruzen had a faraway look on his face. One could only hope for that, Lord Kazekage, he said with a sigh. October 23rd, Sunagakure no Sato. The day finally came that the Suna was waiting for, the day that the emissary from Konoha will be returning to their village. The kids were dreading this day as it was the first time that any of them had any sort of friend, even Matsuri. During the last week most of them spend every hour with each other except for the time when they aren't sleeping, and now that one of them was going away was not something any of them wanted, especially for Gaara and Naruto. It was extremely hard, as both of them no friends to begin with and were ridiculed. For both of them the people were afraid of them. Suna was now somewhat mellow regarding Gaara as the people for the first time in 6 years have seen him act like a child, and also the fact that his sand is not harming the kids he is playing with is something else. Now just because they are not afraid of him does not mean they are not wary of him as such. All of the Suna, civilians and shinobi alike, except for the Sabuku family, the elder siblings, Yashimaru, Baki and Pakura, walk around him on eggshells, believing that one wrong step will result in them becoming a red splat on the sand. Now regarding the shinobi, many of them don't know what to think of Naruto going back to his village. On one hand they were quite happy that they won't have to deal with more of his prank and embarrassment on daily basis, but on the other hand he made their daily routine a bit more lively. Moreover, he was the reason that Gaara was not using his sand on anything that scared him or came to harm him. So yeah, they were conflicted regarding Naruto's departure, except for Jeru. He wholeheartedly wanted him to leave. So here were all of them now with the Hokage, with Naruto and their escorts, who were being escorted to the gates of Sunagakure by the shinobi of Suna, including the Kazekage and his family, the elder Suna siblings, Baki, Pakura and Yashimaru and Matsuri and Maki. As they reached the gate, all of them noticed that the children were extremely quiet. This made some of the elders worried. As they reached the gates, Hokage turned to look at the assembly that gathered there to say goodbye to them, mostly Naruto, but he is going to include themselves too, as it will be the first time in the hidden village history that almost all of the shinobi of another village came together to say their farewell to the emissaries from another village. Lord Kazekage Hiruzen started while looking towards the gathered people. I thank you for the hospitality that you have shown us during our stay, and I hope that this meeting will actually lead to the betterment of the two villages. It was our pleasure, Lord Hokage, and I thank you for your both from the behalf of my village and my family. Raza looked towards his kids with a smile. As they were saying goodbye, surprisingly Gaara came up to the Hokage with a question. Does Naruto really have to go? He asked in a shy voice. It's not something that I could give you an answer of, young one, Hiruzen stated with a wise tone, at which the kids then turned to look at Naruto with Gaara asking the question again. Do you really have to go? At this Naruto looked at them. I have to, he replied, but why this time it was Temari who asked that. Konoha is my home. You guys are awesome and are also my best and first friends that I made. But Konoha is my home, and my dream is to become the best ninja of Konoha, to become the Hokage of the village, and to do that I have to go back to village. At this the kids were all crying, even Gaara and Temari and Maki. They didn't wanted one of their friends to go away. For Naruto it was much harder since he was going back to the place where he didn't had a single friend, but this time it is going to be different. He learned a lot of things with this vacation that he could use. Back in Konoha, one of the things that he learned was that it was much more fun to prank people with friends than alone. So Naruto decided what he was going to do. Hey guys, Naruto started, let's make a promise. He looked at the 5 of them that the 6 of us are going to be the best ninja in all of the elemental nation, and will train till the next time we meet. And the next time we meet all of us are going to be stronger and ninjas in training, and by that time we are going to have much better and cooler techniques than you, Kankuro said as he wipes his tears. You wish makeup boy, it's a war paint. During their stay the kids have noticed that Kankuro most of time covers his face with some kind of makeup or color, and call it war paint. He is right, I am going to learn better wind moves than yours. This time it was Temari who said that. No, Gaara interrupted with a quiet voice, I am going to be better than all of you. And with that all 6 of them were back to their usual self, each of them declaring to be better than the other. And with the Konoha emissaries departed from the village hidden in the sands, as the Hokage now had only one thing to dread, the political problems that are now going to rise in Konoha, land of the demon. Hiya clang bam. Again. It's been 3 days since Urza had woken up from her comatose state in the Uzumaki household. She, after sitting in the bed for a day, decided to help around the house. At first the matriarch of the house was not too much keen on letting her work, but after seeing that she was being extremely stubborn, allowed her to do the small work around the house. But today was different, as Kenshiro decided that both Urza and him needed to train. And that's now where they are, with Urza on the ground, her sword a few feet away from her, and Kenshiro pointing his katana at her. Urza and Kenshiro were in an open ground with Miyako further away from them, so that the repeat of last time do not occur with Urza flinging her swords at him. But as both of them decided to keep to strictly sword fighting, it was not that much required. "Why can't I land a hit on you?" Urza yelled in frustration. She was frustrated as from the beginning of the battle she was kept on her toes by an old man, and she has yet to land a hit on him, and the worst part was that she believed he was not going all out, he was holding back. "Because you are distracted," came the simple reply. "You are distracted from the beginning. You openly ignored some of the openings that I left for you, but you ignored them. And as much interesting as your ability is to summon various weapons, it will not help you in battle while your attention is somewhere else." And he was right. From the beginning of the battle she had been distracted, with most of her attention being on her friend. She knew that alongside her both Natsu and Happy were here too, with Zeref and Acnologia, and she was afraid for her friend and if he was alright. "You are a good swordswoman," Kenshiro stated, "but you are awfully limited with your weapons only, and not only that, but it drains you very quickly too." Again true, because for some reason she had been able to still summon her weapons, but it took awful lot of strength and magical power out of her. "Also, you don't know any jutsu to help you in the battle against me." And that was true too. Something that she learned was that this world has chakra, which helps the human living here to do variety of techniques which they call jutsu. So now here was she now lying down as she contemplating her life and some of the choices that she had made, and her thoughts again went back to her friends. As she was thinking about her friends, her attention went back to the couple that was hosting her, the woman. Miyako went back towards the house to prepare for dinner, leaving both her and Kenshiro. "I know that you are worried about your friends, but you can't let it affect you to the degree that you wouldn't be able to help both yourself and your friend," Kenshiro said, and she knew he was right. She have been at this position several times. When battles and fight takes a severe toll on her emotional state, she becomes distracted, and it once cost the life of her childhood friend, but she knew she had to do it to train for her family, and at that moment she knew what she had to do to help her friend. "Train me." Whatever Kenshiro was going to say next was stopped in his mouth, as he looked at the girl in front of him. "What?" "I want you to train me," Urza stated. "I want to help my friends, and to do that I may have to fight several people, and I don't know how much strong that guy has gotten, and to match them in combat I have to train. So please train me in your arts." Kenshiro noticed that her request was genuine, and she really wanted to learn. He knew that she really wanted to learn, and sending her out in the world of shinobi was not good, and so he decided. "Be ready in the morning," he said while turning back to the place to where his wife went. "Your training will start 7 in the morning. At this Urza looked back up to see that he was going back to the house. A smile broke into her face, knowing that she will now be able to get stronger to help Natsu, and then followed her back to the house. Kanahigaku no Sato, Root HQ. Danzo hasn't been in a very good mood, one would say, in the past 10 days as the Hokage who decided to leave most of the power of the village to the idiots of the clan. He was not in a good mood because his root shinobi were unable to follow because of the Uzumaki kid. He was annoyed because he was unable to learn fully about what the 4th Hokage along with his wife has left for their legacy, and there's several other things that he was annoyed about. But right now he was pissed. Why? Because he was learning that the Uzumaki brat has some kind of bloodline from a letter from the daimyo of the Fire Nation which he received from the Council of Hidden Sand Village. The thing that aggravates him the most was that someone, or more specifically another nation, knew about the bloodline that belonged to Konoha before him. The overall situation wasn't bad, but that particular thing went deep under his skin. It wasn't that he could not use it in his favor, it was that right now the amount of influence he could have was now very low, but it actually could be used in my favor, he thought while smiling in the dark. No, it is going to be in the favor of Konoha, as he began to plan how he could use it in his favor with a devious smile that kept on playing on his face. Land of Honey. The Land of Honey, one of the nation of the Elemental Nation, considered to be quite a peaceful nation, and like the Land of Iron is sometimes used as a place for political talks of the daimyo of various nations. It is a neutral country in the shinobi wars, but do have a vast army. One of the major reason not many try to go against this nation, as they do hire the shinobi villages from time to time but do not involve themselves in their wars. Near the forest of one of the town in the land of honey there is a man meditating on top of a rock. He had jet black hair, and was wearing beige pants and black shirt as a white toga was draped over him. There was a pendant around his neck. Around him laid several dead bodies of animals who tried to attack the human that was sitting in the open, and there was no greenery around him, as if the whole was just dead. This man was Zerif, a human cursed by Anksaram and can kill everything in his surrounding. He slowly opened his eyes to see his surrounding and the dead creatures around him. As kept up his observation, he noticed that out of one of the dead trees a brown creature with round face with a crown made of leaves covering his head. The eyes of the creature was white and had smile on his face showing the hole of teeth, or if they are teeth. This creature also had a big tail which was pointed at the end and was draped with a cape held around his neck with a purple button. This creature was an Obra familiar of Zerif and mostly sneak around the places to get information for him. And right now he had a lot of information that he gathered with the help of Obra, which he stored at the place that is in the middle of the forest. And he knew who else was here and who was going to be. He landed here around 600 years ago, weak and injured, where a group of human found him and took care of him. Most surprising fact was that nobody died during that time, and for the first time in his whole life that he had lived after death of Mavis, he felt something that he had lost. He felt hope. Hope that he could finally die. Hope that he could live freely without having to fear to kill anything accidentally. But it was all for naught, as he found out that curse didn't broke and he again killed everything around him. But this time it happened from time to time. It happened again, how he said while looking around, "Even when I am away from his realm I am still cursed." He then turned around and looked at the little creature who now climbing on top him. He observed as the little creature slowly reached his shoulder and looked towards him with his pale white round eyes and smile. Obra was first thing he created using his magic in this place to get information, as he learned quite early on that in this world information is much more valuable than wealth. He learned about the energy that moves in this world. He learned that if he trained himself properly then he could use both chakra and magic of his world. He learned about the shinobi, their wars, clans, bloodlines, everything that he could learn while he was here. He then turned his full attention toward the Obra. "You have some information for me?" The Obra nodded its head while looking at its master. "Well then, let's see what have found." Land of mountains, mountain nation, a nation that got its name due to the various mountain peaks that are here. There was once a village that was deep within the mountains but was wiped out during the Second Shinobi World War. We see a group of people that were draped with black robes with red clouds on it climbing up a mountain towards one of the caves. The group was being led by two people. One was quiet, pale with golden eyes and slits for pupil, and wore the same robe as the rest of the group. The other person was hunched over and wore a straw hat. He had brown skin and was the one leading the group. "Can you tell me again, why are we here, Sasori?" the man with the pale skin asked the guy that was hunched over. "Zetsu has found some information," Orochimaru Sasori stated. He had heard about something that is lurking in this mountain which is quite dangerous, and is on par with the tailed beasts. Orochimaru pondered on it for a few minutes before talking again. "And can you tell me from where had he gathered this information from?" Sasori stopped walking for a moment before resuming it. He says that he heard few businessmen in Amigakure talking about something here that killed several of the people that came with them here to collect some resources for the boon of their business. As he stated that, Orochimaru looked at him as if someone has taken his favorite experiment from him. "Wait, let me just understand it correctly," he started. "You, a guy who believes in information that you yourself gathered, decided to go trekking because of a half-baked rumor about this place. You do know the amount of rumors that here regarding this village. It's not just about the rumors," Orochimaru Sasori started. "We all know that the Heat Haze village was wiped out, but none know who did it. Yes, your former sensei and teammate along with their shinobi did fought the village, but no one knew how it was wiped out. Only that one moment there was a village and another there was a huge crater in place of that village, right?" At this Orochimaru nodded his head. "Also, if there is something like that here, that is strong. He Pain wants us to see that if there is something like that over here, then to check if it is something that will stand in the way of Akatsuki or not. So that's what he want." As they kept on walking towards the cave, "So what do we do after we check this cave? You do remember that it is the 10th cave that we are going to check?" "Yes, I do, Orikimura," he calmly replied. Soon all of the group reached the cave and went inside the cave to look for the beast that has been told about in the rumor. "So any ideas, what are we looking for?" one of the members of the group asked the leaders. "Nobody knows what we are looking for except for something that has been responsible for killing many people, shinobi included, that went here," was the curt reply of one of the members. As they went inside the cave, they all found out several tunnels that were inside the cave. "Look like we have to split up," Sasori stated while looking at the several caves that were inside it. As soon as he said it, Orochimaru divided themselves into group of 2 to go into the tunnels, and the tunnels that were left, for them he created shadow clones, with the tunnels now being covered by each member of the group, as all of them went deeper into the caves, with each of them having their own opinion of what they might find deep inside the cave. Sasori and Orochimaru were having their own conversation as they kept on walking deeper in the cave. "Do you know the exact reason as to why Pain have sent us to this place? Because I don't think you would actually care about what some businessman has to do with Akatsuki." Sasori sighed but talked anyway. "This place, the Land of Mountain, is quite a famous place, not just because of the rumors but also for something else." He paused for a moment, then continued again. "The mountain and the caves and valleys of the Land of Mountain also house most of the chakra metal along with several other crystals one would use. Many business that is supposed to provide the shinobi with chakra weapons are made from the metal of this place. And because of the recent attacks on the businessmen, the chakra metal has depleted, which means the weapons that several shinobi use are depleted, which is not good, especially for Akatsuki, because right now we need as much resources as we could gather." "I understand what you are saying," Orochimaru started, "but wouldn't it be better to change the location for the mining from this exact location to somewhere else? I mean, the Land of Mountain is a big place, so there is plenty of place to dig around." "You are right, Orochimaru," Sasori stated, "but this exact location also produced the chakra metal with higher concentration." "You mean that the chakra metal from this place is much purer and stronger than the rest of the places?" At seeing Sasori nod, he understood why they were here. He then suddenly jerked his head as one of the clone dispelled himself to send the information it gathered. "What happened?" "Sasori, oh, nothing, just one of the clone dispelled themselves to pass on the information." "And what did they find?" "That all of the caves are connecting at one point or another," and true to his words, all of the members of the group began to meet at some point till all of them were gathered together at one place, with only 2 exits, one that was in the front and one that was in the back from where they came back. Before anyone could say anything, Sasori went inside to see what was in there, and what was inside was a sight to behold. Inside, on the walls of the mountain, was covered with crystals and chakra-conductive ores. It was as if the whole place was saturated in it, as the every one of them looking around in wonder. Even Sasori and Orochimaru were perplexed as they were able to feel the natural chakra that was flowing through this place. As all of them were looking around the place, one of the members looked around and stumbled, and started to pick himself, and stopped as he tried to pick himself up, and after his sudden halt, rest of the group looked towards what he was looking at, and no sooner their eyes went above their hairline, mouth went wide and color went a quiet pale. What they were looking at was a small river that flows towards an underground pond. But it was not the pond they were looking at. It was what next to the pond that made them lose their shit. Next to the pond was a giant figure of a dragon. It had a round face, with 4 large backwards elongated scale plates. The dragon was covered in black scales with blue markings all over it. Its claws were big, but what was making them quite terrified was the pair of giant white beady eyes that was now glaring at them for disturbing its slumber. This was the Black Dragon of Apocalypse, Dragon King Acnologia. Not that the little humans in front of him knows about it, because right now the only thing going through their collective mind was one word: shit. All of them thought simultaneously. Acnologia started to lift his head slowly, seeing that Sasori gave one command, after which everything went to hell. "Everyone run towards the exit," Sasori commanded as he himself turned back to run, and slowly every single one of them hightailed out of there, not before Acnologia reared his head back to tell them they can't hide from him. "Roar!"